we should be... Alright, I think we are now live. Welcome everyone, this is Andres Restart. I am joined by Gamebird Classic and WhataboutNintendo. Both their channels are linked in the description below. And today's discussion is basically about Game Awards 2020, but this is a Nintendo podcast, so we're going to be focusing mostly on Nintendo things. We're going to be talking about Sephiroth coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We're going to talk about Monster Hunter Rise and that trailer and that demo. And we're going to be talking about all the other things that we didn't see or might be getting hints at somehow, such as this whole Fortnite situation and potentially us seeing a Nintendo character at some point. And then also talking about the missing Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever is coming for Metroid and whatever may be coming beyond. All of that we'll be discussing today. And of course, if you guys have any sort of questions in the chat, we'll be getting to that as well in between topics. But that's the general plan. But anyways, Cameron, Brandon, if you guys want to say hello, you can do that.
Salutations! It's good to be back. I'm excited to be here to talk about Sephiroth and all things Game Awards.
Yeah. I guess to get things started, well, first let me make sure, guys in the chat, let me know if everything is looking and sounding okay. If there's any adjustments need to be made, let me know. Preferably now, while the show is getting started, as opposed to when the show is over. But just to kind of give my overall thoughts on the Game Awards real quick. I do think the show was better than last year, right? It was...
Yeah, totally.
I think the big thing that I noticed that was an improvement, and I think other people will agree with me, Brandon, I think we already talked about it actually, was that most of the trailers, yes, there is CGI, but pretty much every trailer had some level of gameplay, and that was my major criticism for last year. It was mostly just CGI trailers. This time around, gameplay in most of the trailers, and that's what I care about the most. I kind of hate just seeing CGI trailers because I don't even know what I'm looking at. I don't know what this game is about. If it's something that it's a new IP or a new franchise, or if it's some sort of reboot, I don't know what they're actually doing with the game. So it's hard for me to get excited about a game that I don't even know what it's going to be about. If it's something that's already known to some extent, for example, Metroid Prime 4. We know it's going to be first-person shooting, adventuring of the Metroid Prime style gameplay. So getting a CGI trailer, that's exciting because it can hint at the story and things of that nature. Breath of the Wild 2. We played Breath of the Wild 1 a couple of years ago. We know what that's going to be for the most part. Obviously, there will be differences, but we know what that core gameplay concept is. So when we get a CGI trailer, it's not really CGI, but it's an in-engine sort of story cutscene, but it's not actual gameplay. It's still okay because we know what it is gameplay-wise, so we can get excited about the story. With a whole bunch of other games that are new IPs or new franchises, when we don't know what the gameplay is and they try to excite us with these super epic-looking CGI trailers that don't tell us anything about the actual game, to me, I feel disconnected. I don't actually care about what I'm looking at because I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Usually I don't even understand the type of gameplay it is at all. Or it'll be a CGI trailer and I'll be like, oh, that looks really cool. That looks like an interesting concept. And it will switch over to gameplay. It has nothing to do with it. So I'm like, okay, it's a good thing you showed gameplay because this CGI had nothing to do with it at all.
Yeah. So. Well, a great example is the Ark trailer. We didn't know it was Ark. Well, I didn't realize it was. I mean, I started thinking maybe when I heard some of the music, I guess it started coming to me.
I thought it was Turok at first. I was like, are we getting another Turok game?
That kind of makes sense.
That would have been so hype. But the thing is,
way better.
Before I knew about what Ark was, when I saw some screenshots, I was like, oh, this looks kind of like Turok. It's not at all like Turok. It's an open world, online multiplayer RPG.
Crafting survival.
Yeah, crafting survival. You do fight dinosaurs and craft things and put it together and capture animals and breed them, and you have PvP and PvE and you can build tribes together. It's a cool concept.
Kind of like dinosaur Minecraft almost.
/MMO.
In a way.
Yeah. It's cool, but it's also at least when I played on PS4, it didn't run really well, but it probably runs a lot better on PC. It's a cool game, but that whole trailer where it was just Vin Diesel with some sort of tribal people fighting random monster things, and then a dinosaur came at the end. Like, yeah, I thought the T-Rex annihilating people was awesome, but it was also like, why is Vin Diesel here? Like, to me, I don't know. Like, I sometimes when I see a real life actor like actually model into a video game, I don't mind it. It's kind of cool. But there are other times where, and I know this sounds weird because we see live action actors in all of their movies in live action all the time in repeated movies, and it doesn't necessarily take away from our immersion. But there's something about seeing Vin Diesel that I'm just like, yeah, this is dumb. I hate it. Like, I love Vin Diesel. I like a lot of his movies. I think he's a really cool guy, a really cool actor. But there's something about seeing him in video games, like actually modeled in, that just to me just seems not genuine. Maybe I'm being too picky here, but that's just kind of my
I think for me
impression.
It's worse because I don't even like Vin Diesel or his movies. I just think he's super cringy. So I'm just like, oh god.
Yeah.
It's like I could see Vin Diesel is the type of character I could see in like Minecraft, Fortnite dancing or something, you know, like that. He's cringy to me. I don't take him seriously at all.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where it's like, I don't know if it's just like being so used to him being squished into a certain type of genre that seeing him in that trailer was just like really jarring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, this doesn't really look like a Vin Diesel thing. Like where the cars or the guns and stuff.
Well, a lot of actors do get typecasted, right?
Yeah, totally.
And it's tough for them to break out of that role sometimes. And just, it's to me, it's strange. I would prefer it. I'm okay with his voice, right? Like, I actually would prefer if they just modeled a character that perhaps has like a similar, like, character, like physical traits as a Vin Diesel kind of guy, and you can give the Vin Diesel voice, and you could still mark it's like, oh, Vin Diesel's in this movie, but that's kind of it. Like, I don't like seeing the actual model. Like, for example, when we do get like animated movies, they don't model in like, you know, live action actors and just kind of make them like animated versions of themselves. Like, no, they create the character as they design it, and you have the voice of whatever actor, and they just advertise that like, oh, and that's fine. Like, the name still brings attention to that. Like, I understand bringing in a big name because that's marketing. It brings in people, it captures attention. So you could just highlight the fact that, hey, look, this person's in this game. Now, granted, Ark's not really like a game about story and voice acting and stuff, so...
I mean, the other awkward part is he doesn't actually say anything. He just grunts.
Yeah, they did it more for just to get some Vin Diesel in their trailer. Like, for people who think Vin Diesel's a cool character. Like, even if it's not like him acting.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, based off of what I know of the first game, it's not like there's, you know, like I know there's supposedly a story there within the world that you kind of like discover and stuff, but there's no like leading cast of characters that are like carrying you through this story. So I imagine Vin Diesel was just for the promotion of Arc 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
yeah,
weird, very weird. But better than last year's Fast and the Furious reveal as like the big.
I'll tell you, I mean, I cared more about. This Arc thing was better than that to me, at least. And all the other things, this Arc thing wasn't the final big reveal. That
is true.
Last year, that was the final big reveal, and they were all disappointed.
Yeah, I think it was actually one of the lowest reviewed games this year.
I'm not surprised.
It's not surprising at all.
Poor Vin.
Let's check in with the chat here before we jump into the topics. Armchair Analysis, hello there. Mr. Goka. It's you, Kamimingo, Captain Rex. Hello there. Armchair Analysis. Sephiroth getting in has me worried for Geno and Sora fans, especially Sora fans. I'm inclined to agree, honestly. It's not that I don't think Sora can't happen. It's just that I feel like if Sora were to get in, it would be something related to Square. Like, you could argue, oh, it's more of a Disney thing, but it's just a little strange. It would be a little strange to have like back-to-back Square characters in there, but at the same time, you know, part of me was thinking, oh man, they will put in Master Chief, like, and they might, like, and that would be another Microsoft character. And we did get a Microsoft character. We got a Square character in Fire Pass Volume 1, and now we have one for this one as well. And we had a Microsoft character last time and one for this one as well. So I guess the premise of them putting of Square getting another character in there, that's not it's not too crazy. It's just to see them back to back like this, I wouldn't expect that. Like, my expectation is for maybe just one company to get a character in the Fighters Pass. Not to mention, I also think there's still going to be maybe a couple Nintendo characters to be a part of this DLC as well. Maybe some people argue it's just Min from the Nintendo side of things, but I don't know. I just think that now that we have Sephiroth for Final Fantasy, I don't expect another Square character to get into Fighters Pass Volume 2, especially if there's only 3 spots left.
Yeah, I agree with you. But my only thing is that Nintendo's just, I mean, they're so unpredictable sometimes.
Right, you never really know. It's not impossible. It's just not
just
something I'm personally expecting.
Yeah, I agree.
But we'll just kind of moving on with the chat here. Hello there, Vooper. Hello there, Isonic. Hello there, Ronnie Fazio. Let's see. Vooper, can't believe Vin Diesel showed up at the Game Awards 2 years in a row, right? Shadow of Nexus. Fast and Furious Prehistoric Drift. There you go.
That's a good name.
So it looks like Vooper is kind of agreeing with my my Vin Diesel point. Vooper says, I think it's because you can model anything you want into a video game and just use mocap. Why would you do a real person? That is kind of part of it, I think. It's just like, there's so many different things you can design and put in. Why bother to put in a real person when you can do something else? To me, it's a little strange. But, you know, I understand that a lot of it has to do with marketing. Like, it's definitely like, hey, look, Vin Diesel's in our trailer. People love Vin Diesel. Watch our trailer, buy our game. Let's see here. Shadow of Nexus. The only actor I want to see in a video game is Tommy Wiseau. Let's see. Luna Tunes Atomy. Do you feel that Nintendo falsely advertised Age of Calamity? Ooh, that's an interesting question. Okay, let's tackle that. We'll answer a few more questions and then we will jump into the Game Award stuff, guys. So I don't really feel like Nintendo was too unfair, but also I guess I have to kind of also bring up the fact that for me it's a little bit of an asterisk because I make it kind of my job to pay attention to what Nintendo is doing and understand what they're doing and predict what they're doing. And even though I make it my job and I do research all the time, I'm not always right. You know, like we make predictions, we get some of them right, we get some of them wrong. That's just kind of the way it goes. But for me, I did not feel offended in any way. I think it was just kind of the nature of the beast. I would say that yes, initially I did think, like most others, that it was going to be like straight up a prequel story. But at the same time, I also acknowledged that maybe they would try to bring in other characters of the Breath of the Wild world, like the champion successors that wouldn't be a part of the prequel timeline. But how would they do that to where it would make sense? And that's where it gets tricky. So what did they do? They created a different story. Okay, Cat. No, you're not allowed here. Jumping around. He's a little too excited today. But anyway, carrying on with my point, I just think that they kind of had to do something because they wanted to have as many characters as they could. They wanted to make things interesting. At the same time, with a prequel, and I think we talked about this with Monster Maze last week, he made a good point in one of his videos that with the prequel story, to show everything that happened, people dying, like important characters, and ending on such a grim note, while it would have been interesting to see them sort of tackle that and seeing how they would construct a very fun game through with that sort of restriction, it is a restriction. It does limit things that what they can do for gameplay. So I think what they prioritize is how we can make the most fun game, right? So by doing the story in the way they did, they enabled themselves to put in more characters, more gameplay opportunities, offer more diversity, and add more missions and such, so they could go beyond that actual story for the prequel. So in that way, from a gameplay perspective, I think they made the right move. But of course, could they have constructed a story while still having fun gameplay? Yeah, maybe if their execution was a little bit better, if the writers were a little bit better, it would have been possible. And I'm not even saying the story was bad, right? But to just kind of go specifically to your question, did Nintendo falsely advertise it? I wasn't sure at first, right? I thought they might have to change some things up to add more characters. But they gave us a free demo to play. You play the demo. You didn't have to buy the game yet, right? You could try out the demo first. And the demo literally shows you the very, very first scene. They kind of tell you that weird things are going to happen. They show the Mini Guardian go back in time. And when time travel's thrown in, all sorts of things can change. So they sort of let you know they told you basically from the very beginning, hey, things may be different here, right? So I'm not really upset by what they did. I don't really feel like they were trying to falsely advertise it. I just think because they had that demo that literally shows the very first cutscene, it's time travel. Like it changes everything once you see that. So I wouldn't say they falsely advertised it, but yes, at the same time, it was misleading in the beginning. I'm just not sure I should be mad at Nintendo for doing that.
I don't see why you would be mad at Nintendo for doing that. I feel like that's what we want Nintendo to do, is not spoil the entire story.
Mm-hmm.
They hinted that it was different, but they didn't explicitly say what would happen. I mean, I feel like a big complaint a lot of people usually have is that they tell us too much. And now that they actually hide things and make a story that you can actually not get spoiled on, people are all mad. Like, I don't get it.
I think that I don't think Nintendo intentionally misled anyone. Like, I don't think that was their goal at all, to be like, this is going to be a prequel to what happened, but we're actually giving you a game that's an alternate timeline. I think it was just like their way of revealing something with wanting it to be a surprise. And
yeah,
I think what ended up being very misleading for a lot of people, just because, the Zelda fan base is extremely passionate. So once they know we're getting a prequel game that takes place leading up to the big Calamity, everyone's running their ideas and different theories of where the game's going to end, what's going to happen to what characters, how we're going to get to the events of Breath of the Wild 1. And I think it was just like all that hype and excitement running just like rampant. And obviously, I had my theories and my feelings, but I don't think it was anything intentional. I think what Nintendo should have done, but they probably just didn't think about this, is in that reveal trailer, they should have probably clipped the scene with the little mini guardian traveling back in time. Because I think without giving a lot of story away, I think that would have set fans to go, oh, maybe this is an alternate timeline. It looks like there's time travel, but it's not really revealing much more than that.
Wait, so are you saying that they should have put that scene in the initial trailer, or do you think they should have cut it out of? Okay, they should have said that there would be time travel from the very beginning.
Yes, I think they should have shown a clip, because like a quick clip of that Guardian, like just showing like Calamity happening and the Guardian jumping through the portal really quick, and then it cuts to a different shot of gameplay or whatever. Just like that little nugget is enough to kind of give the player base a hint of what's going on without spoiling anything.
Okay, I see what you're
saying.
saying.
They did show the mini Guardian though, so
yes.
They kind of were hinting already that things were different. I think that was their intention. It was like, hey, Mini Guardian's here. You never knew about him before. Obviously, there's gonna be stuff happening that's different from what you know.
Right.
Yeah, and then the marketing for the game, they did also show off the ominous figure as well. Like they did market several elements that we did not know about beforehand. But I guess what some people thought is like, oh, these were things that we just didn't know about that were always in the past. To an extent that is true, but both the Mini Guardian and the ominous figure only become really relevant because of what happens in that opening cutscene. So in the initial Breath of the Wild timeline, they weren't nearly as important. What happens in the opening cutscene that causes the mini guardian to go to a separate timeline, which is why Age of Calamity is still canon. It's still canon. It still happens. It's just in the Zelda timeline there are multiple timelines, and this is a separate timeline to Breath of the Wild. But Breath of the Wild still happened and is still connected.
Right.
But anyway, so it's a little strange how that all came together, for sure. But yeah, I personally am not I don't feel personally misled about it. I just think what you both made great points that really they gave us some teases, some hints, but they didn't want to tell us the full story right from the beginning. They didn't want to spoil everything, so they told us what they did. But I'll also argue though that I think because people didn't know quite what it was, that excited a lot more people about it. Like if they started from the very beginning and said, "Hey, this is a separate timeline," people might not have taken it as seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard because like I said earlier, when you have a very passionate fan base, people feel a sense of ownership with the titles that they love. So when things don't go the way that they're hoping, I mean, there's a lot of things in Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity that didn't go the way I was hoping. I was hoping, we talked about this in the last podcast that I was on with you, that I was hoping that the game would be that Death March, because I felt like that would be something really cool to see.
I'll tell you that the Battle of Hateno is ridiculous. I played it on hard mode, and there's just guardians and Lionels and all sorts of bosses coming at you at once, and it's not fair at all. So, like, to me, it's like, I see why Link died in that fight, because when you play through it, even though things are a little different, you have some help because of the timeline difference there. It's still a ridiculous battle because you are surrounded by boss enemies that work together to kill you. It's just crazy. If you play on the higher difficulties, it's just not fair. Right. Yeah. But let's move on though, because I do want to eventually get to the main topics, and I still want to address some of the chat. Flippin', Geno still has a chance. I'm rooting for Geno. I think the Geno is also kind of similar to Sora though, in the sense that Square was involved with the creation of Geno, so they have some rights to Geno, I believe. So it does make things a little bit tricky when they just added Sephiroth, which Square absolutely owns. But at the same time, Geno is seen more as a Nintendo character, right? Because Geno is from a Nintendo game, a part of the Nintendo world. So even though Geno is owned by Square, I would actually say that Geno has a better chance than Sora at this point. Because if they were to put Geno in, it would be put in as a more of a love letter to Nintendo fans, especially from the 90s. So I think it could maybe happen. Maybe we could even argue that putting Sephiroth in Smash Brothers is great marketing for Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I gotta be frank with you, I have the game. I played through like several hours of it, but I kind of slowed down just because the pacing just wasn't right for me and the level structure. But with this whole Sephiroth hype, I'm actually thinking, oh man, you know what, maybe I should finish this game because I want to see all this epic story that's also going to entail Sephiroth. So I think seeing Sephiroth here is marketing Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? Which is benefits Square. And maybe there's a deal in place where, hey, if we'll market Sephiroth and Final Fantasy for you, if you let us also use this other character, because our fan base would also really appreciate it. So I think there's a chance that Geno could still be in there as maybe like that extra character, because this has 6 instead of 5, this Fire Spice Volume 2. So I think he has more of a chance than Sora, but at the same time, I'm going to be frank, my expectations for Geno have gone down. Still possible, I would say more likely than Sora, but not like super, super likely. But of course, there are still so many possibilities.
It's pretty easy to be more likely than Sora when you have the Disney connection there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that hard. It's like, okay, Sora, I have to go through 2 companies. One of them is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And then the other one, I just have to go to one company that I've already worked with before. It's like, wonder which one I should choose there.
Yeah.
Rob,
go on, Carmen.
I was just gonna say I agree. I don't think Sora's on the cards anymore. But I can, like you said, I could see Geno still as a possibility. I feel like for the final character, because we know this is like the last run.
Like Geno's like a bonus kind of character for Nintendo fans, right?
I could see them doing. I have 3 characters in mind for like the final. Like this is the end of it, and that's Geno, Waluigi, or Skull Kid, because it seems like those were 3 crowd favorites that people just wanted so bad in Smash Brothers, and 3 of the only ones that were in the voting that they did during the Wii U days that haven't been included in the game yet. So I could see one of those 3 possibly being the finale.
That's interesting. I actually want to read this comment here from Rob Obscuro. Nintendo forgot Xenoblade. That's just kind of relevant to my sort of retort to you, because I actually feel like still that a Xenoblade 2 character is really likely. And it's mainly due to the fact that when the final Smash Direct happened, like right before the game came out, we got a Rex Mii costume, but at the time Sakurai had explained that he initially had some desire to bring them in as a playable character, but didn't really happen due to time constraints. And the same was sort of said for an ARMS character as well. Like there just wasn't enough time to get an ARMS character or a Xenoblade 2 character in there. But time has passed. Min Min from ARMS is now in there. Time has passed for Xenoblade 2 as well. There are 3 character spots left. I am thinking that a Xenoblade 2 character is still happening. I don't think Nintendo's forgotten about Xenoblade. Now, if these next 3 characters come and go, and there's no Xenoblade, then I'll agree with you, Rob, that they forgot about Xenoblade, or rather just decided not to go with Xenoblade because they could have made more money from some other character, maybe. But I still think that a Xenoblade 2 character has a pretty good chance.
Do you think there's a chance? Do either of you think there's a chance for a new Pokemon character? I mean, we haven't had anything.
You can't really put it past. I don't think you can put it past Nintendo or Pokemon Company after they gave us Byleth.
Yeah.
But given that the Pokemon DLC has now come and gone, I'm gonna side with it's not happening. Because let's look at the timeline for Fire Emblem 3 Houses and Byleth in Smash Brothers. Fire Emblem 3 Houses came out, I want to say, July 2019. Is that correct? So the game came out during the DLC span of Fire's Pass Volume 1. Like, Smash came out in 2018, before Fire Emblem 3 Houses. And then about 6 months later, right? July is the 7th month of the year. We got a reveal in January for Byleth for 2020. It was this year, right? Yeah, the beginning of the year. So 6 months later, after release of Fire Emblem 3 Houses, we got Byleth as DLC in Super Smash Brothers. If we look at the time for Pokemon, Sword and Shield came out at the end of 2019. Same year as Fire Emblem 3 Houses. And then all throughout this year, we've gotten DLC. All of the DLC has come out for Sword and Shield, and still no announcement of a Pokemon character in there. In contrast to Fire Emblem, when they had the Byleth coming out, they also had when they did the Sakurai presentation, I believe, for Byleth, the same day they also had an update trailer for the Fire Emblem DLC. All of the DLC stuff for Sword and Shield has come and gone, and there's been no mention of another Pokemon Smash character. So I'm of the frame of mind that there isn't really a Pokemon character coming anymore, given the timing of things. Like, they've kind of passed that window. Could they still do it? The Pokemon anniversary is this February. That's a good opportunity to maybe announce the next Smash character. So they can still maybe do that. That could still happen. They might have like some sort of Pokemon 25th anniversary event where like, hey, Pokemon character here in Smash Brothers. Right. They could do that. But I'll also throw a curveball at you. You know, it's also having a major anniversary around that time as well. Zelda. You know who's really hype right now? Impa. So just saying, I would prefer Impa over a Pokemon character. I feel like the guys at Nintendo and Sakurai would be inclined to agree with me, but there's also, like, if we look past a Pokemon character and but there's a whole bunch of other options as well. So we'll see. But I don't think the door is closed for a Pokemon character, but I do think it's become less likely now that we've gone not way past, but all the DLC has released for Sword and Shield, and we're past that like 6-month window similar to what we got for Fire Emblem. Right. Yeah.
Yep.
But just comment. I want to get through the chat here real quick. Mr. Goha, how much Final Fantasy VII music will they add with Sephiroth? Great question. We will find out next Friday. I think 7 songs.
7 songs.
That's an improvement. We only got 2, I think, for Cloud.
And only 2 for Dragon Quest as well.
Yeah.
It will be 1 song.
So I'm expecting 2 more songs.
I'll say this. Sephiroth's theme, One Winged Angel, is worth more than 1 song in my opinion.
It's pretty cool.
That song is
I love
it's
the
like a 10-minute song, but it's so epic.
Was that the one from the trailer?
Yep.
Yeah, where they have like the chorus and they're like Sephiroth, like they're saying his name, but it doesn't sound like this. It doesn't sound like they're saying. Like I think it's so cool. I've actually kind of sang. I've been singing it the last few days. Like
that makes 2 of us.
It's cool.
I legit immediately was visualizing like these just like clutch battles with that song just like blaring.
It's cool.
Everyone's percentage way high. So
yeah, I'm way more excited for Sephiroth that compared to Steve. Not that Steve's bad, but I'm definitely gonna be playing with Sephiroth when it comes out, and I'll probably be revisiting 7 Remake really soon. But we're kind of already talking about Smash Brothers, but I want to just kind of get through a chat here, so I'm gonna kind of speed things up. Let me see. Birdman, what about a Astor background DLC? How he got in touch with Ganon's power, how he communicated with Ganon, maybe we were Ganon's voice for the first time. So, we didn't see any Age of Calamity DLC announced at the Game Awards, but they could still have some sort of Zelda anniversary event, perhaps around February, late January. That could still maybe happen. They could announce a number of things. They could show off Breath of the Wild 2 gameplay, give us a release date. They could announce Skyward Sword HD or some sort of Zelda collection, maybe some Zelda spin-offs, some Zelda merchandising, because we've seen trademarks for that similar to the Mario stuff, and we got a 35th anniversary drug for that as well. So there's all these different Zelda options. One of those also may include Age of Calamity DLC. There is room to maybe have an expansion of the story of what's-his-face, Astor. There were some data mines that have some like gameplay voices for Astor and Suga and Robbie and Pura as well. So it's possible there is some sort of side story DLC including these characters. We also don't know what happened to Suga throughout the story of Age of Calamity towards the end, and we don't know exactly how Pura and Robbie were able to get where they were. I don't want to spoil everything, but they escaped from a certain place at a certain point, and we don't know how they did it. So there's definitely room to have like side stories to say, oh, this is what happened to these characters during these times, this is how they got away, and make them playable. So they can maybe do that, and that could be part of the Zelda anniversary announcements we see in a couple months from now. Maybe. It's all rumors and speculation, so don't assume I'm saying, hey, there's gonna be Age of Calamity DLC during the Zelda anniversary direct this February, but maybe.
Yeah, I think it's likely. Given it's a Warriors game, they tend to do add-ons to a lot of their stuff.
I think that makes sense, but at the same time, I'll also counter by saying that Age of Calamity is kind of more focused on the story or a background story for Breath of the Wild a little bit, and they don't really need to go beyond that, I guess. So there's not
very
that much
built
need
for a specific purpose. It's fulfilled that.
Unlike the original Hyrule Warriors, which was just throw in everything Zelda, and there's so many ideas, they still have so much more to add afterwards.
The most random characters ever.
Yeah. But, I'm open to maybe them adding a few more areas that are explored in a few more story missions, and they also add a few more playable characters. Like, if that's all done together, that's sizable, but I'm also not expecting it either. I think it's possible. Let's just say 50-50, but, we'll see. Taker610 provided a super chat. Thank you very much, Taker. Taker asked, did Astor survive the Calamity in Breath of the Wild? In the original Breath of the Wild. So, I don't want to spoil too much, right? But we do see in the opening cutscene that the Guardian goes back in time, and the malice that follows also gets into the past, apparently. And that extra malice from the initial Breath of the Wild timeline causes issues in this new timeline that the Mini Guardian is in, that is the Age of Calamity timeline. And that actually corrupts its version of itself in that timeline, which Astor does use. So Astor kind of gains more power because of the events of that. In the original Breath of the Wild timeline, he doesn't have that same level of power, so he may not have been as involved. So, it's hard to say for sure what actually happens. But what would be interesting is if we do see this Astor character as an older evil, like no longer he's like young in Age of Calamity, but what if he survives 100 years, similar to a couple other older characters in Breath of the Wild, and is like this evil, like old, but like an evil but old sort of dark prophet, kind of like the sisters from Ocarina of Time. Why are there? I'm forgetting their names.
Oh, the witches. You're talking about the witches?
Yeah, Twin Rova.
Twin Rova, yeah.
Yeah, maybe he could play a role similar to that, probably with less power, but basically be in support of the resurrection of Ganondorf. Like, there's maybe some potential there, right? I'm not expecting that necessarily, because it does seem like this character was created for the purpose of Age of Calamity, but maybe, you know, they had some plan for this character with the initial Breath of the Wild, with the background, and because Age of Calamity, because Koei Tecmo was working with the Zelda team, maybe they gave him some tidbits for that to sort of tease Breath of the Wild too. Like, it's possible, so maybe we see something like that, but either way, Astor's power in Age of Calamity is far greater than what it was in the initial Breath of the Wild timeline.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I think with Birdman's chat, I kind of referred to that here, so I got one more. Armchair analysis. Do you think Rayman is still likely? And this is a great transition into just talking about Sephiroth or Smash Brothers and how that was all presented to us. I think Rayman has to still be an option. I think Rayman could potentially be like that final big third-party character. I do think that would do some waves. So I still think he's in the cards. Like, I think he's way more likely than Sora. Do I think he's like a shoo-in? No character's a shoo-in, honestly. Like, there's not any single character in existence that I'm like, yep, that one has to happen. Like, the closest one I think is Xenoblade 2, but I'll be frank, like, I could also see Nintendo be like, hey, you know what, we got one of the two games that we talked about putting in beforehand. That's good enough, right? So, I'm not sure, but I would say that Rayman has to at least be, like, one of the top candidates.
I'd say his stance has not changed with this. It's just as likely as it was before. So it's like,
which is highly likely, but it still hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Maybe highly likely is too high, but because it hasn't happened yet, right?
I'm at like 25% chance, but that's pretty high for a character.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think it's possible, but it's like you said, Andres, like, no one's really a shoo-in.
Yeah.
At this point, so it's like, I mean, I thought when I was doing a few of my Smash character prediction videos, I thought without a doubt that this was going to be the Smash Brothers that we got Travis Touchdown, and we did as a costume and stuff. But I'm like, it makes so much sense. They got the special indie No More Heroes game on the Switch that was exclusive. They're most likely getting 1 and 2, which we ended up getting, and 3, No More Heroes 3 is an exclusive to the Nintendo Switch. There's so much love between Suda51 and Nintendo right now, and they got the costume. So no, it's anyone's guess. I think it is possible, but who knows?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the thing, though, right? Like, there's a lot of marketing going on between Nintendo and Suda51 for No More Heroes. Like, it's clearly, like, something that they care about and they want it to succeed. But at the same time, like, I think some people undervalue or underappreciate the existence of the Mii costumes. Like, that is still something. That's still something that people get to see and play. And it gets people thinking about a particular franchise. It's still marketing there. And I'm pretty sure that Suda51 is actually content with seeing this Mii costume here, because No More Heroes was an indie game, right? Like, it's an indie series basically, and to see it represented in Smash Brothers is a big deal. Even if it's not like a fully main playable character, it's still something.
Yeah, and I think it's still enough for broadening an audience. I still think there's plenty of people who have never heard of No More Heroes before who will be like, oh, what's this Travis Touchdown skin that I could wear on my Mii? And then Google it and be like, oh, these games look kind of cool. I think there's still something cool there.
Yeah,
even just with the costumes.
For sure.
Yeah.
But, Brandon, do you have any thoughts on that? Are you ready to just sort of jump into this whole Sephiroth situation?
I'm ready to jump in.
Okay,
Let's do it.
For my personal predictions, I sort of talked about this in my video yesterday. My predictions were basically this. We would get a Monster Hunter trailer we would see maybe a 2D Metroid and maybe a Zelda trailer. But if we don't get the Zelda trailer, the Metroid trailer, we'll get Smash instead. So I was like maybe half right. Like we got the Monster Hunter trailer and we got a Smash DLC, but we didn't get Metroid or Zelda. So I don't feel terrible with my predictions, but I wasn't entirely right either, right? But this Smash thing is huge. Like once Nintendo announced the Smash thing like a day in advance, I was like, okay, we're definitely not getting both Metroid and Zelda. Maybe one, maybe, right? But that was like it for me. Like once that happened, and we didn't even get that. But I would also say that this Smash thing and the Monster Hunter thing are two pretty major things. Smash is obviously huge, and Monster Hunter Rise is probably going to be the best-selling third-party game on the Nintendo Switch for its entire lifetime. Like, or at least one of them. So these are two really big things that they showed off at the Game Awards, I would say. And there was a couple other little things, like there's this other exclusive Switch game they showed off earlier. I forgot the name of it.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with water. That's all I remember. So
Ghosts and Goblins.
Not Ghosts and Goblins.
I know that one.
Something deep, the deep beneath or something, or something like that.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But the two major things that stick out is the Monster Hunter Rise trailer and Sephiroth and Smash Brothers. And I guess, like, to me, what was really, I mean, there's a lot of different things to sort of talk about this, right? Like, we've already addressed throughout the comments already that, yeah, I think we're all. I'm really excited for Sephiroth. Like, it's inspiring me to go back to Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think that's cool. This character is epic, and it looks like the character has really good reach. And it's pretty exciting for those reasons. And I would also say that I wasn't really expecting an antagonist character in the DLC either. Like, that's also something that's kind of interesting, that kind of perhaps has some implications or not necessarily. Because all the DLC characters have been kind of main characters for their respective series. So let's go over them. Joker, I think we all agree, main character for Persona, right? Then it was Hero, literally the main character for every game he was in. Banjo-Kazooie, the game is called Banjo-Kazooie, there you go. Terry Bogard is like the main character from his fighting games. Then Byleth is the main character, the playable character in Fire Emblem. Min Min, on the other hand, was like that one kind of weird one, like because there were so many main characters. But Min Min was also like one of the most popular characters, right? So they picked Min Min. And then Steve is the main character for Minecraft, so there you go. So the point is, if you look at all those DLC characters, it's not like a antagonist character that gets in, and it's pretty much usually just a main character or the most popular character from its respective series. Now, Sephiroth is a very popular character, so it makes sense that they added him, but this guy is an antagonist. He's like the evil character. So they basically, like, it's cool because it kind of like makes Final Fantasy VII feel a little bit more legitimate to me, if that makes sense, because Final Fantasy VII, I understand as a classic. I haven't been and played through the entire game. I have it on Switch. I have the remake as well. I haven't been it though, but I understand how important Final Fantasy VII is. Like, it's like if Ocarina of Time is like the game on N64, Final Fantasy VII was like the game on PS1, right? So it's a huge thing. And to see this representation, to have two different characters in Smash Brothers is really cool. And it's not just two different characters, but it's Cloud. And then they kind of like did all these different things in the trailer to pay homage to like that rivalry, the battles between Cloud and Sephiroth. And it just kind of, to me, it just sort of Smash Brothers celebrating the greatness of Final Fantasy VII, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think this announcement was unbelievable. It was so good, and a huge part of that was there's something really special when there's a character reveal who like just no one was talking about prior.
No, there was no rumors, nothing.
Super nice.
As far as I know, and chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, I hadn't heard a soul talk about we're going to be getting Sephiroth announcement. And there was a lot of mumblings about Steve coming to Smash. There was mumblings about Terry. A lot of the fighters that we got, people were rumoring Banjo, but this was like Joker, felt like a complete curveball surprise. And Sephiroth, he is like, whether or not you're a Final Fantasy fan, he is one of the most iconic video game villains of all time. He is a very well written and very interesting villain. He has a very interesting story behind him, and I just thought it was so cool. And I also want to add this: says a lot that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is a game that's 2 years old now. Came out in 2018.
Yes, it's 2
and
years.
a 2-year-old fighting game announced one new character at the Game Awards, and it's one of the most talked about and most popular reveals.
That's an amazing point.
It just goes to show you the power of this reveal, but also the power of Smash Brothers and how impactful it is when this game announces a new character. So I think Sephiroth was huge, and I cannot wait to play this character. I think it's gonna be
getting
really
a character
cool.
in Smash is like getting inducted into the
Hall
Hall
of
of
Fame,
Fame.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a-
seriously.
Very special moment. And it's strange that literally every company recognizes this. Even Microsoft and Sony recognize the power of Smash. It's
Yeah.
so strange.
Oh man,
It's the
Kratos and
only
Master
game
Chief
that's
confirmed.
just universally known, just universally recognized.
The final DLC characters are me, Kratos, Master Chief, and Rex and Pyro from Xenoblade. That's it.
I'd
right
be
there.
down for that.
I would be down for that too. I don't
I'd be
think
so
it's-
down for that. That'd be
it
amazing.
would be
All-
crazy.
It's not
all of
gonna
those
happen,
would-
but it'd be
would-
amazing.
All of those would light up the internet on fire.
Rex and
I just
Pyro would
want-
probably be the lowest, like
I
not
just want Doom Guy.
important compared to the other two, but you know, it's just.
That's still a big one, though. I mean,
For the like
those
the
games
core
are getting
Nintendo
bigger.
for the core Nintendo fan base, I think it'd be important. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, let's just put it this way. We really, really were happy that the game hit the 2 million mark recently in sales. We were like,
Yeah.
yes!
Yeah,
Let's
like,
go!
it's-
Best-selling Xenoblade by far. Woo.
I think the
I
thing
think-
is that we want other
Not
lesser
mainstream.
known Nintendo, less mainstream Nintendo franchises to find more success. So that way, when it comes to the fanboy battles, we can be like, hey, we have more than Mario and Zelda. There's also this other really cool franchise. So
Yeah.
The fanboy battle.
yeah.
I'd really like them to see at least one more Nintendo character in this fighter pack. Just because like you mentioned, Impa I think would be so cool, especially with the Zelda series. I mean, a handful of the Zelda characters in Smash are just different versions of Link, and there's so many great characters within that series. I think Impa from Hyrule Warriors would definitely be a great character and a great service to the fans who absolutely love that character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and the timing kind of works out for it, I think. Like, the next character announcement could be this late February, right? Around February. And then that's the same timing as the Zelda anniversary. Maybe they have a presentation where they announce a whole bunch of Zelda things, including a Zelda character. Impa, I think, is like the best option, especially if they have Age of Calamity DLC and she's like featured there. Like, it just kind of like it would make sense, right? Again, there's so many possibilities, so you can't like be like, yeah, that's the one. But I think a lot of us would definitely be down for that. But kind of just, you know, going back to the Sephiroth situation, I really, you know, it's cool. It's really, really cool. It's hard to say like what implications there are. I think it just kind of, there are no, the implication is that we don't know what's going to happen. I think that's really the biggest takeaway. So what I wanted to sort of follow up with you earlier, Cameron, when you were making your points, was that I would say that Sephiroth might be the most surprising character. Like, there's obviously some debate there. Like, I'll say that
Joker. I think him and Joker.
Steve to me was, personally, like the most kind of mind-blowing, because I just completely I got to a point in my personal like thought process, like, yeah, this is not happening. But when it happened, I was like, oh my god, right? So
Steve was
Yeah.
crazy.
yeah,
What?
but here's the thing. So Joker, if I remember correctly, there were some rumors for the character, if I remember correctly. Now, yeah, I mean, I could be mistaken there.
It wasn't
But-
like a lot though. It was
Yeah.
something that wasn't generally well known or that people didn't really
Yeah.
put too much stock into.
Yeah, I want to say Verge Ben was talking about it, but I could be mistaken there. But Hero absolutely was rumored for well in advance. We were like, yeah, Hero's totally happening.
Yeah.
Banjo-Kazooie, I knew about it before it happened. Brandon, I think you and I talked about it, so you know we kind of knew. Like, that was like one of the few things that I was telling everyone else. Guys, this happened. I told like a year in advance, like, guys, we're gonna get Banjo-Kazooie revealed at E3. Just you watch. It happened. But like that was like one of the few things where I was like, yep, that's the Smash character that's happening, right? I wasn't the only one. There were other people who were speculating about this character for a while. Like, it was some Microsoft character, right? But once Banjo happened, the Steve speculation sort of died down, because there was a lot of Steve speculation, to your point, Cameron. A lot of discussions about that. But after Banjo, it kind of died down. People started thinking, oh, maybe it's not happening. And then Terry was actually like leaked like a couple days beforehand, or like a day beforehand. Right. Byleth actually was a complete surprise. I don't think anyone leaked Byleth. Byleth was the one that was crazy, I would say, in terms of like there was no hints towards it at all or anything like that. Sakurai hinted at it, but we had no idea what he was alluding to.
I think the thing with the Byleth reveal is you're right. I don't remember any rumors about Byleth, but I think a lot of people assumed Byleth might come because it's Fire Emblem and Sakurai loves that series so much that there was a lot of potential for it.
Right.
I do agree. I think that was a big one.
But yeah, you're right in bringing up that people were talking about it as an option because Fire Emblem. I mean, it's Fire Emblem with Smash Brothers. There's a big correlation there, right? So
50% of the roster.
Definitely was a part of a lot of speculation for a lot of people. So from that perspective, it wasn't that surprising. But then the next character after that was Min Min, which was definitely a part of a lot of people's lists and speculation. So that character wasn't that surprising. Steve was really surprising because I thought that they kind of closed the door on that. But he was a part of that initial speculation way back when. So that was kind of an interesting sign. Yeah. I think we had hints that there had been discussions about it years in advance, years beforehand. And as it turned out, there was just sort of something that was in the pipeline for a very long time, and it eventually materialized into something. Which is why, I just want to say that Steve is a great example of things that we hear about from behind the scenes, and people just sort of assume, oh, it was fake news, it wasn't real or anything like that. Well, it doesn't mean it wasn't real. It just means it didn't materialize yet. It didn't come to the market, to the consumers yet. It could still be in the pipeline. It just takes time for these things to show up sometimes. Yeah. So when we talk about, for example, a Metroid announcement coming at some point, or a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer coming at some point, just because they didn't happen at the Game Awards doesn't mean they're not happening eventually. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Point is, though, Sephiroth, no rumors, no speculation. There was nothing there. Like, everything else kind of has something. Sephiroth is like, yeah, it's just cool. Like,
it's cool.
Yeah, it's just a cool character. Yeah, I'm really excited about the character. Like, I'm not, as I've already said, I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy fan, but I acknowledge the greatness of the series, and seeing this character and how cool he is, and me knowing I know a little bit about the character, and what I know is amazing. Like, it's really cool. So just seeing this character in here and what he can do is really exciting. And just makes me excited for what's to come for the rest of the Fighters Pass. Like, these three characters we have, Min Min, Steve, and Sephiroth, hit a really nice variety, right? Min Min is like that Nintendo character a lot of us fans wanted. It was also finally like a female character, which is really cool. Steve is like, it's not my part of the, that's not my sort of demographic, right? It's kind of like more of a younger demographic. And
that trailer was good, though, I thought.
Yeah, it was a great
trailer. Yeah,
great. It's funny. Like, just the sense of humor in it was pretty funny.
But it's such a huge game that so many people play. Like, it's a really cool thing. But it's like Minecraft is a very mainstream kind of game, you know what I mean? And then Sephiroth is like this super hardcore, like very dark, awesome character with an amazing story behind him, and this amazing rivalry between him and Cloud that really appeals to that Final Fantasy fan base. It's very Sony-centric. And you have all that to sort of start off the Fighters Pass. Like, that's a really nice balance is what I'm trying to get at here. So I like what they're doing with Fighters Pass Volume 2. Like, I think there was some speculation or some discussions that maybe Volume 2 wouldn't compare to Volume 1. But so far, so good, I would say. I think they're doing a pretty good job of sort of matching up to the first one.
Yeah. Thinking about what you were saying about like how it's interesting because we got a big villain. Like, I wonder if like Smash could do things in future iterations where they do fighter packs, but there's maybe like a villain pack or a hero pack, which is kind of exciting, predicting who's going to be the next baddie that joins Smash and who's going to be the next hero.
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm glad they did decide to add a villain because there's a lot of heroes and a lot of protagonists.
Yeah. What was the last villain we got? Was it K. Rool or?
Yeah.
Yep.
Before then, I don't even know.
Yep. DK rule. That's it.
That's
Steve's a villain.
And I imagine this will probably be the only villain we get in the whole
This is me,
DLC.
Yeah, I don't expect there to be any more villains. Well, there's one other character that I would say is okay, Kitty. You're way too excited today.
Your cat just loves Smash.
He's hyped for Sephiroth, man. But he made me lose my train of thought. How dare you, Onyx?
Villain might be coming to Smash. There's another one.
Oh, right. So okay. One character that I think could maybe happen that maybe wouldn't be a villain. It kind of depends on what they do with the character, but it's Sylux. So here's something interesting about Sylux. Sylux is the only hunter from Metroid Prime Hunters which is not a spirit in Super Smash Bros. So some of you who may not be too aware of the story behind Sylux might be like, oh, okay, that's just one missing spirit. Big deal. Here's the thing, though. He is the most important hunter besides Samus. So the fact that all the other hunters are represented as spirits and Sylux isn't, to me, that's sus. I've been playing a lot of Among Us, I'm sorry. And
Hell is sus, bro.
The question is, what? To me, it suggests that there's some sort of plan in the future for Sylux. And what we know in terms for Metroid Prime 4 is that Kensuke Tanabe is planning for some sort of story for Sylux. Like, he wants to do more with Sylux. And we've seen multiple teasers for Sylux at the end of a few Metroid Prime games. At the end of Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, Sylux is following Samus. And then at the end of Metroid Prime Federation Force, Sylux is stealing a Metroid egg from the Federation. Two very, very interesting things that could have huge implications for the story for Metroid Prime 4. Point is, Sylux could play a vital role to the story for Prime 4, especially considering that Dark Samus is dead, meaning that there needs to be some sort of humanoid rival for Samus potentially in Prime 4. Sylux could play that role. Basically, what this suggests is that Sylux could end up being a very big character in Prime 4, and if that's the case, considering that he's not even in Smash Bros. As a spirit, even though he's clearly the most important hunter besides Samus, I think there's some plans there. So maybe that means they are planning Sylux as a potential character towards the end of the DLC, maybe around the time they announce or show off gameplay for Prime 4, which may include some sort of story trailer that also talks about Sylux. Like, I think that's in the cards potentially. Of course, it doesn't have to be a playable character, right? It could just be like, hey, here's a spirit event. Oh, and here's Sylux. After they sort of reveal Sylux in Prime 4. Like, it doesn't have to be a playable character. It could even be a Mii costume or something. But the point is that there is something coming for Sylux, I would say, at some point, and he is sort of potentially an antagonist or an antagonistic-like character in the Metroid series. He's kind of similar to Sephiroth, actually. Like, Sephiroth to Cloud could be not too far off from Sylux to Samus. Like, there is some sort of rivalry there. There's some sort of connection between them somehow. We don't know entirely what it is for Sylux yet, which is why it's kind of interesting. But point is, if there's another villain character, that's the one.
You think so, but what you don't know is that I've been with Sylux and I'm in electrical doing wires with him right now. Can't be him. He's not sus.
He's not sus. Okay.
No,
Not sus.
can't be.
Okay.
Not sus.
I actually never thought of Sylux before, and now that you're bringing that up, like, I don't want to get excited about it. It sounds so cool.
Like, just because he's not a spirit doesn't mean he has to be a playable character. Like, just maybe when Prime 4 comes out, they have a spirit event and Sylux is a part of that, right? I just think that they're saving Sylux for something, maybe playable character, but it could obviously be something lesser.
Man, this is the cool thing about Smash Brothers is that Ultimate has so much to offer, and yet we could always think of so much more. What about this character? What about this character? What about the music in this game and the stages from this game that they could do? Like, there's man. Yeah. Smash is awesome. I love these new announcements, and it's so fun to speculate, especially a character like that I never even thought about.
Stop.
But
Kitty.
I think would be
Go relax.
addition
You're making
roster.
noise. I'm sorry.
Do either of you guys have character, like a dream character that you really
I want
in Smash?
Rex and Pyre from Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
That's your ultimate. What about you, Brandon? What's ultimate.
I really want Doom Guy.
Doom Guy.
Yeah.
Doom Guy would be really cool. I mean, Nintendo's relationship with Bethesda has been nice lately, and I know Microsoft owns them, and they've got a great relationship with Microsoft as well. So
Yeah.
I still wouldn't rule out a Bethesda character announcement. I think that's still a possibility. I got my dream character. Mine was Banjo, and even though they were heavily rumored, like I was cautiously optimistic because I had wanted this character in Smash since the very first Smash Brothers on 64.
Banjo was also a dream character of mine.
And getting that, I remember just getting that character, I felt like whatever they release, I am happy with. I can't complain because I got the character that I've always wanted. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way. If there was another character that I wanted to get, it's probably Doom Guy. But no, I played Banjo-Kazooie when I was really young. I have a ton of nostalgia for that.
I mean, I'll say that I've already got a couple dream characters already. Like, I don't need there to be more.
King K. Rool was big.
King K. Rool was one of my dream characters. Ridley was another one. Banjo and Kazooie was like, dude, I was just like screaming like Banjo, like, dude, people were like, yo, are you okay? Like when that day happened, like my neighbors like, what happened? It's like the bomb dropped. Like that was literally that was the
Joker
best
meme. You wouldn't understand.
That was the best direct ever because they revealed Banjo-Kazooie, and then they're like, "Oh, well, there's actually one more thing after this monumental reveal." Yeah. Breath of the Wild 2. Like my voice was gone for a long. I had a raspy voice for a long time. I thought it was
good.
That was. There's no direct that has. That is the direct of directs. We were so spoiled that day.
It was so good.
Yeah, it was great. But I want to check on the chat here. Jordan Dropout provided a super chat. Thank you very much, Jordan. Jordan says, Sephiroth caught me so off guard. Never thought he was an option at all. Hype, but sadly looks like I won't get Geno. And we kind of touched on this earlier. I think Geno is still in the cards. Not as likely as Sora. I mean, more likely than Sora, I would say, but still not like super likely either because, to your point, Sephiroth is a square character, so I do think it's a little weird to expect two square characters in one pass. But Geno's sort of, I guess, exception. Geno would be somewhat of an exception just because he's kind of like a Nintendo character that fans have been wanting for a really long time. So people don't even really see him as a square character. He's more of like a interesting Nintendo character, and if he were to be added, he'd be kind of more of like a bonus thing that Sakurai sort of worked in there. Yeah. Sort of looking through the chat here. Mr. Gohan, with Sephiroth in Smash, would you think that we can have a second character from a company that is already present in Smash? Could be possible. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's happened already. Steve is from Microsoft, and Banjo's also from Microsoft. Like, it already happened. So could it happen again? Yeah, could happen again. Technically, Joker, I want to say, is from Atlas, but that's the like the child company of Sega. So we could see another Sega character, for example. What else? Who's Terry from? Terry's from SNK, right?
Fight.
Say again?
Is it?
What's the
King
publisher?
It's SNK. Yeah.
So there could maybe be another SNK character potentially, but so maybe. But we've kind of already seen that. We've seen two Microsoft characters and two Square characters in Fires Pass Volume 1 and 2. Ronnie Fazio, I hate to say it, but I think Geno's chances are done for on the 17th. Now that both Microsoft and Square got another character, I think Sega getting another character is a high chance. Yeah, so I mean, pretty much the point I was getting at earlier. Sega could get another one.
Yeah, I saw people posting on Twitter pictures of Eggman. Dr. Robotnik would be cool. And
another antagonist.
I kind of second that. I think Dr. Robotnik would be a neat character. Especially give him some like gadgets and stuff like that.
They have a character that's similar, Bowser Jr.
Bowser Jr., yeah.
Yeah, they can make like a heavier version of Bowser Jr. I would like him to be different, but I'm just saying, like, they have like something to start from, I guess. Hello there, Cycly. How you doing? All right. Ronnie Fazio. Am I the only one that feels that Nintendo keeps flipping the bird to Sony by having more PlayStation All-Stars and Smash than the actual PlayStation All-Stars game? It's kind of funny, right?
Yeah, I don't think they're flipping the bird. I just think Smash is a way better game than the Sony All Stars.
Yeah,
that game was a bust.
I wasn't interested in it. Armchair Analysis. Yeah, that reaction to Breath of the Wild 2 was your best reaction ever to date. Thank you, Armchair Analysis. Yeah, that finished me. My voice was wrecked after that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch this because I haven't seen it.
Oh, it was insane.
Yeah, it was insane. Armchair Analysis. We could see another Bandai Namco rep, maybe Digimon, Xenosaga, or Tails. Maybe. There's a lot of options, so I think it's possible for sure. But before we move on, is there anything else you want to say in reference to Sephiroth and Smash Bros? Like, the character is awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing more about him this Friday. I'm just, actually, one interesting thing is that the character's coming out this month, December 2020. I did not see that coming. Crazy. That was kind of a surprise. Yeah. I thought maybe an announcement, but I didn't expect for the character to actually come out this month. Like, that kind of speeds things up a bit, right? Like, now all of a sudden we could maybe see a fourth character come out around, at least be announced around February, and then come out around March or so. Like, that's not out of the question anymore.
Yeah. In my Game Awards prediction video, my only prediction I got right was Smash. I said that one as like the obvious prediction. It just made sense.
Yeah.
Given the little time gaps we get between each announcement, this felt, and we already know that the Game Awards is a place for a great place for Nintendo to announce Smash characters. But I said it was either going to be very early next year launch, or that they could even do, and it's available right now, which it wasn't. But I feel like saying, hey, it's available this month is pretty much as good as available right now. You know what I mean?
It gives us something to be excited about for the rest of this month as Nintendo fans.
They're probably going to drop it at the end of that presentation on the 7th.
Yeah.
They'll probably, and you can play them right now.
Within a week of its announcement is pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So that was pretty cool. And it definitely it kind of changes my predictions a little bit moving forward for 2021, which we'll probably touch on a little bit later in the discussion. But before we talk about our like thoughts on No Zelda and Metroid and all that other stuff, I want to talk about Monster Hunter Rise for a little bit, because I'm not sure how much you Cameron, how much you're a fan of Monster Hunter, but Monster Hunter Rise is pretty cool. I'm really excited for this game, and I was really happy to hear that we are getting a demo this January.
Yeah. So me personally, I was never a big Monster Hunter fan. I attempted to play one of them on the and I played a demo for the one that was on the Wii U, and I finally caved and bought Monster Hunter World on the PlayStation 4, and that was my first time kind of like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like this, but it didn't fully win me over. I had fun with it. I had a couple problems with some of it. Like it bothered me with the multiplayer that you couldn't just be in a party with your friends in the hub and just enter missions. Like you had to sync up for the same mission and then join in the mission. But those things aside, what I saw for this one, I thought looked really cool. And I was really curious if Switch got another Monster Hunter with the success of World on Sony and Microsoft, how it would kind of stand out. And this one does a lot of really cool things. I wrote some notes down when I watched the trailer just because, like, wow, this one, there's mounts in this game, which is awesome, that it's giving you a brand new way to travel that you can't do in any other previous Monster Hunter. Grappling hooks, those like magical tethers that you could swing. The new that's like it kind of is Japanese inspired with the cherry blossoms. I'm actually kind of pumped as someone who kind of became lukewarm to Monster Hunter. I'm becoming more of a fan of the series, and this has me really interested.
Yeah, seeing the trailer, like, just we got to see this is because it's another trailer, right? A new one that kind of tells us a little bit more, shows us a little bit more of the environments, and there are some spots I'm like, oh, that looks fairly open. Like, I like that this game seems to be more open than previous Monster Hunter games. I know Monster Hunter World's pretty open, but compared to previous Monster Hunter games on Nintendo, this looks to be the most open one yet, with a lot more that you can explore. The obvious, like as you brought up, you have the little spark bug thing that allows you to grapple around. Then you have the mounts. Like, I love what they're doing with this game, so I'm really excited about it. But the big thing to me is that we're getting this demo in January. It is just kind of interesting because now we're sort of seeing where Nintendo's sort of focused right now. Like, they're more looking at the Game Awards, it seems that they're more focused on immediate future things, which is why I don't think we saw Metroid at the Game Awards. Now, hindsight is 2020, right? But they focus on things in the immediate future, which, at the same time, I don't think I should be faulted for predicting Metroid, because they showed Bayonetta 3 at Game Awards 2017, and we still haven't heard anything about that game yet. So it isn't like they always pick things that are for the immediate future. It's just this time around they decided to focus on things for the immediate future, which I do think is smart. And it's just all of a sudden we're kind of seeing some things that sort of help to fill in that gap a little bit. Because December, we don't really have anything. We're at least getting Sephiroth now, and we have this Monster Hunter demo to play in January. Now, I understand it's a demo, it's not a full game, but, there could still be some decent hours of gameplay there. And I don't know if they announced it yet, but a lot of the demos that we're getting are basically early start demos, right? Like, I love that for Age of Calamity. Like, I actually could just basically start the game and put in like a handful of hours, and that just sort of carries over to when I actually buy the game like a couple months later. So that works out great.
They did that with Pikmin 3 Deluxe as well.
Yeah. And I know they had started doing it with the Octopath Traveler, and I want to say they did it for Bravely Default 2 as well.
Yeah, and Dragon Quest 11 on the Switch.
That's one. Yeah.
That was like an 8-hour demo. It was like massive.
I did not finish that demo.
Yeah.
Pretty standard for demos these days for save progress to carry over.
Yeah, so it's something that's something, right? And that kind of helps. It'll help us a little bit throughout January. I did see a question in the chat, which I think is kind of relevant to the point I'm trying to make right now. Mr. Goha said, "Do you think we can have a general Nintendo Direct next year, or that Nintendo will drop the idea and replace them with something else?" So I don't think Nintendo Directs are going away. Brandon and I have talked about this before, but basically, if Nintendo Directs were going away, I don't think Nintendo would be using the Direct branding with all of their partner presentations. They would just take that away. Like, the partner presentation has like 5 names in it. It's Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase. Like, that's a lot. And then you have to put the date.
The partner showcase if they're going to get rid of directs.
Right. So the fact that they have the Direct branding in there, I think, to me, suggests that, hey, this is still a thing. So don't worry, more is to come. So I'm not too concerned about that. I think Nintendo Directs are coming. I think this year was a very unique year, so they had to change things up. But next year, hopefully things start to change a little bit. Now, there's still a lot of COVID things going on here in the States, at least. So, everything's not back to normal. We hope that by next year things start returning to normal, but there's still a lot to work through right now. But hopefully, at least in terms of marketing, Nintendo can start appearing normal to us, perhaps. And hopefully that means like a Nintendo Direct in perhaps even January. I think that's maybe a possibility. And my main reasoning for that is because I think January is kind of a slow month. And December, it's not a slow month in terms of sales, but there's not like any big new things coming out in December. But if they also don't have anything to come out in January, that would be kind of strange to have 2 months where they have nothing to come out. So I think that they need to at least start talking about some things. So I do think January seems like maybe a good time to have like a Direct potentially. And it's just kind of looking at what they're doing. They have the Smash character in December, and then they have this demo for Monster Hunter coming out in January, and the Monster Hunter Rise obviously comes out in March. Like, I think, we're starting to sort of see Nintendo put together their early 2021 plans, because in February we're getting Bravely Default 2, and we also know we're getting 3D World Deluxe plus Bowser's Fury. Monster Hunter Rises in March. So it does seem like that they need to talk about those games again, potentially at some sort of presentation. Actually, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe we get like a Nintendo Direct Mini in January, actually. And then maybe we get like a Zelda Anniversary Direct in February. I could see something like that happening. And maybe we don't actually see the return of like the big main Nintendo Direct until like next summer. But that's sort of what I'm thinking right now, actually.
I think the only reason we haven't gotten the Direct this year, well, there's two reasons. One, I don't think there's been enough announcements to fill a whole Direct with. Like, I feel like everything that happened in the entire year could fit in like one Direct as far as announcements go. Like, not that many games actually were released by Nintendo themselves that needed to be in Directs. So, obviously that. And second, I think they're changing the way Directs work. I think these partner showcases, and obviously now they have the indie Directs as well, are trying to make the main Directs less filler so they can be a bit shorter, so they're not 45 minutes and then like two big games get announced. And then there's a bunch of other things. And I think they want to like separate the Directs to separate, their different types of content, so that you're not sitting through indie games and these smaller third-party games and the major announcements all in one thing. We have 3 different types of Directs for that now. That's just my personal thinking. So yeah, I think next year when we need more information, and I think next year will be a lot bigger than this year, we're going to get a Direct.
Yeah, I think Brandon's onto something. I've actually been wanting to do a video on this, but I'm still like kind of like gathering my thoughts on it. But I don't think Nintendo Directs are gone. Like, I don't think they're gone. But I do wonder if Directs as we knew them are gone, and that they're kind of changing up the format. It's interesting because we got like 4 mini partner showcases. Was it like
there
4
was
of them?
Yeah, it was like 4 back-to-back months of a partner showcase in each month.
It was a ton of them in a really small window, and people were really disappointed with that first one. And the second one was maybe a little bit better, and then the third one was good, and then the fourth one was like, the reception kind of like went up and down with those. But they could have easily made that one big Direct, and I don't think anyone would have complained. But it kind of seems like what they're doing is, instead of just having the 40-minute Directs, that they're like, hey, let's split these up and just have like announcements every month or every other month throughout the year. And then maybe like they did the Mario 35th anniversary, like that was the big one game focused Direct for them that they might do for Zelda's anniversary. But it's hard to say. The weird thing about the way they did announcements this year, and again, it could have been part of COVID, it could be them experimenting, was that some of their biggest reveals were Twitter drops. That's the weird part, because
Paper Mario and 3D World, Paper Mario, Age of Calamity. Well, Age of Calamity had a video release, but yeah, basically a small trailer video little thing. Pikmin 3, Age of Calamity, and Paper Mario were all revealed, not through a Direct or of any kind.
And you think about those are, in my opinion, all big deal games. I'm just like picturing them doing those mini partner showcases, maybe squishing 2 of them or 3 of them together, and then throwing Age of Calamity at the end of it. That's a good Direct, But I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the thing is that all of those things, though, like, it's just none of it's like internally developed like big Nintendo game stuff. None of it is. Pikmin 3 Deluxe is a enhanced Wii U port. 3D World Deluxe is, 3D World Deluxe. 3D World Deluxe is coming out next year. 3D All Stars. Yeah, 3D All Stars. That's just 3 emulated Mario games put together. I like it, but you know what I mean. It's not. It was a very small team that worked on it. Not a big deal. Age of Calamity was developed by Koei Tecmo, a third-party developer, and then everything else is just third-party stuff. So they didn't have like anything from the Zelda team or the Mario team, or the ARMS Mario Kart team, or Retro Studios, or Monolith Soft, or anything like that. You know, there wasn't like any internally developed big new Nintendo games to show off. So I guess they didn't really feel like they needed to have a Nintendo Direct if they didn't have anything like that to show off.
Yeah,
it's totally possible. It'll be. I mean, next year is going to be interesting. I think if we don't get a normal Direct next year, if we do go another year without a normal one, I think that that's definitely a sign that.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you go 2 whole years without a normal General Nintendo Direct, unless like next year, I mean, God forbid, it's not going to happen. But God forbid, like next year gets worse by like significantly. Like otherwise, I'm inclined to agree with you that if we go a whole other year, yeah, you're right. Like I think it's already kind of crazy that we've gone this long, but I understand the situation. It's just not. Yeah. It just hasn't been a normal situation. Next year, I think we do see a Direct. Like, it kind of has to happen. 2021 is going to be a big year for Nintendo. There's a lot of big games coming out next year. Yeah. There's going to be a Direct. A normal, general Nintendo Direct. Not a Direct Mini. A Nintendo Direct. That's the name. Put the month, and there you go. Nintendo Direct Summer 2020 or whatever, or 2021. Something like that, you know? I think that's maybe happening. Birdman provided something interesting here. He added me. Well, we are getting a Pokemon collaboration with the International Space Station in December 31st, so Diamond and Pearl remakes. Well, that could potentially be a hint to that. Maybe. I'll have to look more into that. But, you know, I'm actually of the frame of mind that we are getting some sort of Pokemon remakes in 2021. Diamond and Pearl is my first pick. I think that's maybe a possibility, which will just sort of highlight another thing from Nintendo. Pokemon's 25th anniversary is coming up. Pokemon Days in February. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a number of Pokemon announcements. There's probably be a Pokemon Direct in February. So when you consider that you have 3D World and Brave Default 2 coming out in February, Monster Hunter Rise coming out in March, the Zelda anniversary and the Pokemon anniversary also being in March, there's a lot of things for Nintendo to talk about. And of course, obviously, imminent Smash announcements. So all of those things, like there's going to be something. There's going to be things coming out sometime between January and March in terms of like Nintendo announcements. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's the period where we get like a full general Nintendo Direct. They could do that. But obviously, I mean, maybe it's not obvious to everyone, but Pokemon's going to have their own separate presentation because that's what they always do. So that's going to be separate. What's tricky is that we don't know what's going on with Zelda right now because I do think there's going to be something for the Zelda anniversary. I don't know if they just put that in a general Nintendo Direct or they have it as its own separate thing. Because there's a number of potential announcements there. I talked about it earlier. Breath of the Wild 2, a Zelda Collection or a Skyward Sword HD, some Zelda eShop releases, some Zelda merchandising, potentially Age of Calamity DLC, potentially a Zelda Smash character. Like all of those, not saying all of those things will happen, but if even half of those things happen, that's enough to have a Zelda-focused kind of Direct, you know? So hard to say for sure how they go about doing that. So it's getting kind of tricky here. But I guess it kind of brings me to the next part of this discussion. Because a lot of us were thinking that maybe we would see like a trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 at the Game Awards. And that didn't happen. So to me, before I let you guys have the floor here, Brandon and I put together a little discussion before the Game Awards talking about what to expect from a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. And I wanted to make sure to emphasize in that discussion that, hey, maybe this happens at the Game Awards, but it's also entirely possible it will not happen at the Game Awards. And depending on what happens, how this trailer sort of turn out to be. And Brandon and I had a little bit of a debate there, right, Brandon? Like, we ultimately came to a conclusion. But I think, you know, what was interesting is that I felt that the next trailer we should get shouldn't really be a teaser, but more of a full-scale 3 to 4 minute trailer that gives us more story tidbits, a lot more gameplay tidbits, and gives us an actual title drop. If you look at how they handled the Breath of the Wild stuff, how they handled the Mario Odyssey stuff, that seems to be where we're at right now for Breath of the Wild 2. But if they were to have an appearance at the Game Awards, to what the point you were making, Brandon, that wouldn't really make sense because the trailers at the Game Awards are a lot shorter, more concise. It wouldn't make sense to have that kind of trailer then. So if you think about it, both you and I were kind of touching on what was going to happen. I felt that we needed to have a full-scale trailer, you felt that it didn't make sense to have a full-scale trailer at the Game Awards. So what ended up being the case was that, yeah, there was... It may be the case that the next trailer we get for Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be a full-scale trailer, but because it's going to be a full-scale trailer, that does not fit for the Game Awards.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we were talking about in our discussion, and I agree. And I think the next trailer is gonna be in the next couple months, as we discussed, before, or, by that anniversary or around there. And so I'm kind of glad they didn't show anything at the Game Awards, because I think that makes it more likely that they'll show something soon. Whereas maybe if they had teased it at the Game Awards, they might be like, oh, we can hold off till like summer.
I'm a little bummed. And it's not just that we didn't get Breath of the Wild 2, but my hope was that if we didn't get Breath of the Wild 2, we'd get at least one more thing. I think the Smash announcement was fantastic, and no one's like, from what I've seen, no one's really upset with Nintendo for only having Smash as their big thing. I was just hoping that they'd have at least 2 announcements, a Smash character, and then one more.
Well, I would say Monster Hunter Rise was that thing. I understand it's a third-party thing, but Nintendo and Capcom were working very closely together on this.
Right. I was just hoping for one more thing that we didn't know about.
Right.
Just
a new thing. I got you. Yeah.
Because I understand the circumstances of this year, and I'm like totally fine with them having a light year and doing remasters and ports this year, and also not wanting to get lost in the conversation between the imminent launch of Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. But now that those consoles are out and the conversation around those is we can't find them anywhere, I felt like this was a good time for Nintendo to be like, hey, we've been a little bit quiet, but look at what we've been working on. Here's a taste of something that you're going to get in 2021 that'll rock your socks. It felt like a good time to just like drop something big, and I feel like there's enough eyes watching the Game Awards that it's all within a few hours. It's not like E3, like you have to keep posted with what's going on after a few days.
Yeah,
I feel like this was a good time to drop something big. That's the only reason why I'm disappointed. But if the game isn't ready to show and they have big plans for a really special reveal, that's totally fine. Knock my socks off when you finally reveal it.
I do agree that now's a good time, because not only are both the next-gen systems out of stock, like all the stuff on tech side is out of stock. Your new graphics cards from NVIDIA are out of stock. Your new graphics cards that just came out from AMD, all out of stock. So it's like if you want to buy somebody a tech gift, the Switch is kind of like your best bet here. So for them not to market it, it's kind of strange. But to play devil's advocate, if maybe they want to save those big marketing for later in next year when the competition actually does have stock, so they're competing more. Right now they can kind of just slide by and get that,
the Switch is
easy sales.
Yeah, they're gonna get away with it right now because both systems aren't on firing on all cylinders yet.
Yeah,
but next year they might want to save their big guns for then.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. I was just hoping, like, and obviously I'm not a business CEO. They know their company way better than me. Just as a fan, I was like, man, I hope there's that one more thing just to get people super pumped.
I totally agree.
Nintendo fans have been so eagerly like hungry for just morsels of something. It's been such a quiet year. It's been such a weird year. There's got to be something big. Sephiroth was huge. But I just wanted that one more thing. It could have been the Metroid 3D, the HD collection of the 3 Prime games, or a new 2D Metroid. It could have been, I don't know. It could have been Bayonetta 3. I just wish there was that one more game.
Right.
I will say this is the first Game Awards where I was actually more excited for a third-party announcement than anything that Nintendo did.
The Crimson Desert game.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That
game looks amazing.
was mind-blowing, kind of. Like, I was very impressed with what I saw. And I'm like a hardcore Nintendo fan. Like, if you're not a Nintendo game, you gotta work really hard to impress me. And that was definitely it captured my interest greatly. Like, I think Sephiroth in Smash Brothers definitely is what excited me the most. Monster Hunter had me happy. It's not that I'm not hyped for Monster Hunter. Like, I'm very hyped for Monster. Like, I'm probably been playing a lot more Monster Hunter than I am playing Smash. Like, just to be totally real with you. Not that I don't play Smash. I do play Smash, but Monster Hunter is going to take like a few hundred hours out of my life next year, guaranteed. Smash Brothers might not take that as many, is what I'm trying to say, in 2021. So I should have been more excited for Monster Hunter, but the thing is, Monster is kind of a known quantity, and when it comes to Smash reveals, there's always a lot of hype behind that, right? But besides those two things, the other thing that got my interest was that Crimson Desert trailer, because it just was like this huge technical showcase, and what was special about it wasn't even like just the fact that it was like visually impressive and having crazy physics going on. It was like the variety of the environments, the fluid looking fighting mechanics, the different variety of enemies, like, and the theming, all super cool. Like, this looks like the kind of game I want to play.
Work.
Yeah,
like the particle effects go off when you're fighting is super cool.
Yeah,
that game was gorgeous and looked awesome and made me ask the question, is this too good to be true? This looks amazing.
I think this will probably be a next gen and PC exclusive game.
Yeah.
No, you both are wrong, because
it's coming to Switch.
It's coming to Switch. It's coming to Switch, and it's gonna run like trash shit on the base Switch. It's gonna look worse than Arc does. It's gonna look worse. It's gonna be like 240p, but on the Switch 4K, it's gonna run at like 6p. 600p.
I'm watching the trailer right now just because it's so good, and there's so many effects I'm just looking at, like, yeah, that would not be on the last gen versions. Like, even the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X wouldn't get this effect.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually coming to Switch.
It's definitely like
what
it would look like on next gen.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I want to ask you guys this, because there was a standout game for me, game announcement, that I thought looked really cool, but it's also kind of a bizarre game, so I'm not sure how about it. But it was the game It Takes Two. Do you guys remember that one?
Yes, yes, I do. It's the one where they got turned into dolls, right?
Yes, they get turned into like puppets, and it's like
that
like
looks fun, actually. Yeah,
I love the guy who makes the games. It's so funny.
Oh, he's such a character. But that game looked really cool to me, and that looked like one where, man, I wish this was a platform, because this looks like it would do really well with the Switch base.
Yeah.
There's a handful of games come out. I'm like, man, if that was a Switch game, it would do so much better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I totally.
Yeah, there's kind of like
that.
platform type games.
So I want to kind of get back to what we were talking about, though, in terms of like Zelda not showing up at the Game Awards, and I see this point brought up by Birdman in the chat that I think is relevant. Birdman says, I think that a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer was if that was in the Game Awards, but if it won Most Anticipated Game Award, but sadly it didn't. I'm sorry, I kind of butchered your comment there, but basically, from what I'm understanding, you're saying that Breath of the Wild 2 would have been in the Game Awards if it was going to win Most Anticipated Game, but it didn't. So here's the thing about that. I believe Elden Ring won Most Anticipated Game, and I don't remember seeing Elden Ring.
No, they didn't show it. They didn't even confirm it for next year, which is crazy.
Yeah, so I don't think... I actually think that there wasn't necessarily a plan there. Like, I understand sometimes it kind of seems like they sort of line things up that way, but this time around, given that Elden Ring won, and there was no Elden Ring trailer or announcement, I think that they just legitimately picked something that they thought was deserving of the title, and it had nothing to do with what was being shown off.
Yeah, and I also think Nintendo likes to do things on their own terms. They never really let things like that dictate when they won't announce something, you know?
Yeah.
I'll also say that they totally got it wrong. Okay, Breath of the Wild 2 is absolutely deserving Most Anticipated Game. Now,
I don't know who's over here anticipating Elden Ring.
Well, I mean, Elden Ring's a From Software game, and that's cool. But the thing is, we don't know that much about Elden Ring. Like, it's just kind of like
for next year. I mean, specifically.
Like, I have a theory.
For that year.
I have a theory as to why Elden Ring won. I'm actually really that's one of my most anticipated games. Nowhere near the level of Breath of the Wild 2. But as a big Souls fan and From Software fan, I am.
I'm definitely interested in it as well.
But the reason why I think it could have won is it's not just a From Software game now. George R.R. Martin is one of the co-writers, and that's going to get any Game of Thrones fan excited for more George R.R. Martin.
This is more of a marketing thing, isn't it?
I'm not saying that necessarily all Game of Thrones fans are gamers, but I think he carries enough clout to get people who are fans of him excited for something, who are gamers.
Yeah.
You know?
I get your point.
But,
and the other thing is that Elden Ring is going to be on more than one platform. So you have to take that into account. I still feel like Breath of the Wild 2 is probably going to outperform Elden Ring.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's going to create more buzz than Elden Ring. It's not that I like From Software games. Bloodborne is my favorite PS4 game. Love it. In terms of third-party games, excluding the upcoming Monster Hunter Rise, I think my favorite third-party game on Switch is Dark Souls Remastered. Like I haven't played every Souls game. I'm kind of like more of a newer Souls fan, but I am a Souls fan, is what I'm trying to say. So, you know, I think Elden Ring is gonna be really cool, whatever it is, because I trust From Software to make a great game. You know, I'm not trying to say anything ill about Elden Ring. I'm simply saying I just think they got it wrong. That's it.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah. But you know, I knew it was a possibility it wouldn't show up, but I did think that there would be a really good chance. But it just comes down to one of those things like you never really know what Nintendo's thinking. And the point I brought up earlier is that it's not really consistent either. So because at Game Awards 2017 they showed up Bayonetta 3, huge thing to announce then, and we still haven't heard anything about it.
Nothing.
So, you know, if you based things off that Game Awards, you would think, okay, maybe Nintendo will announce something that's really big, even if it's a little bit of a ways off, right? But this year, it's very clear they just focused on things for the immediate future, with the Smash DLC coming out this month and Monster Hunter Rise coming out in March, but also with the demo in January. So, you know, it's hard to say. I think Nintendo's very inconsistent with that, and that's not even me, like, I'm not trying to say anything insulting, it's just they are inconsistent because they change their mind depending on the year and what they want to do. So it's very hard to predict what they're actually going to do. I think maybe next year we do probably get a Smash reveal, though. I'll stick with that.
Yeah. Dude, that's crazy. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Unless the last Smash character is already announced by then.
It's maybe. Yeah. I mean, there's only 3 more characters left.
It might even be out by then.
I mean, you could be right. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about that one.
The one cool thing about Nintendo not, like, this is just me being, like, super positive and optimistic, but I think one of the cool things about Nintendo not showing off Breath of the Wild 2 at the Game Awards this year is that Nintendo loves to, especially lately, do big trailers for new games and then be like, it comes out in 2 months.
Yeah.
Or it comes out in 3 months. So I think it's fair to say that it's a safe bet we're getting Breath of the Wild next year. So I imagine when we finally get like the big trailer, it's going to be like the release date's in a month or 2 months. You know?
I actually am going to disagree. I think
Really?
Zelda's the one IP that even during the Switch era, when they're announcing things so quick to release, Zelda, they were like, nah, we're going to announce it early. Like they announced it in 2019. We still haven't even seen it again since then. Like, that's unheard of in Switch era announcements.
Save for some sort of terrible. I mean, you got Bayonetta 3, right?
But that's not from Nintendo. I'm talking specifically.
I mean, Nintendo's
really the one who adheres.
It's not an internally developed thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Metroid Prime 4 is internally developed, but it's been canceled.
So then you guys think that Zelda's going to be the holiday title then? Because
Probably.
It wouldn't be if it's not going to be soon
ready,
after the trailer. It's not first half of next year.
I think even if it was ready and they could technically release it first half, I think they'll wait and polish it more, like they did with Mario Odyssey. They were like, we could release it, but we're gonna save it for October and really polish it up. I think they'll do the same thing. Just we can take the time, so we will. I mean, that's how the Zelda team has been in the past. If they can get away with taking extra time, they're gonna take it.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Yeah, I mean you're making a great point. My only big question mark is we're expecting a stacked year. I'm just like wondering what else have they been working on that's coming out next year.
There's
you
so
know?
much. There's so much.
Yeah.
And they're probably saving some of it for the year after. But for example, both the Mario team, obviously the Zelda team, and the team behind Arms and Mario Kart, they all came out with games in 2017. Going into 2021, that means they've all had like 4-year development cycles. So they're
And
definitely
Monolith
close.
Soft.
Monolith Soft as well.
Right.
Well, they had the definitive edition, but they have more than one studio. I totally understand what you're saying.
They've been working on that medieval games confirmed start in mid 2018.
Right. So if hypothetically speaking, if all of those games are coming out next year, they absolutely need like a big direct sort of thing. I would say early in the year. If all of those games are coming out in 2021, they need like something similar to the Switch showcase. And here's what's really interesting. Okay, and this is full blown overhyped speculation mode. Like,
bring it.
It may not happen. Put it on. Take it with a grain of salt, guys. Because I just
tinfoil hats.
I really want to just like harp on the take it with a grain of salt thing, because right now people are extra salty because they didn't get Metroid or Zelda at the Game Awards, even though that was always a possibility. That was never assumed that it would be at the Game Awards, which is it's just an option. Like, Nintendo had the choice to do it then, but they could still do it a little bit later. But point is, so I'll just kind of say what I've been sort of beating around the bush for. January has nothing. We got the demo for Monster Hunter Rise. There's nothing in January. It's kind of weird, right? Like, we also have December, which is kind of like empty. We don't know, but the speculation, the belief by many, that 2021 is going to be one of the biggest years for the Nintendo Switch. If that's the case, if all these development teams from Nintendo are ready to come out with a game, there may be some sort of a big event in January to start talking about it. And actually, it could also sort of add more reason to why we didn't get Metroid or Zelda at the Game Awards, because they could be saving a lot of the big Nintendo stuff, like the internally developed Nintendo stuff, for some sort of presentation early in the year, potentially January, which is I'm sort of speculating because it's like that month that has nothing. So you don't have any games in January. You gotta do something to keep fans interested, right? So you might as well then make the announcements. So what I'm getting at here is that in January, that may be the time they decide to announce this Switch revision we've been hearing about. It kind of makes sense. And the reason why why it's sort of all kind of coming together to me right now is because you go back to 2017, the Nintendo Switch presentation. That's where they sort of like actually talked about all the details for the system. They showed off the new Breath of the Wild trailer. They showed off Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. They announced Shin Megami Tensei 5. Still hasn't come out, but it was a huge thing. They showed off Splatoon 2, Arms. That's a lot to show off in one. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, like, that was huge. That was a very, very huge presentation.
It's super hype. It's awesome.
If a Switch revision is coming out next year, early in the year, and all these teams from Nintendo are ready to release games in this year, and they actually want to compete with the next generation competition and have this to be one of the biggest years ever for Nintendo, January makes sense, because that's what they did 4 years ago. To me, it's sort of lining up. The holidays will have passed. They are now allowed to talk about a new Switch coming out, and it's open. There's no games coming out in January, so maybe announcements will sort of help to tide things over until at least February. So maybe in January we're getting a huge presentation with a whole bunch of big Nintendo game announcements, including a Switch revision announcement, maybe even 2.
I'd love that. My hope for next year, just like hopeful things that we don't know for sure, is I hope we get the announcement early of the Switch revision, the Pro or XL or Super Switch, whatever it's called. Get an announcement of that early. That launches in the first half of next year with Breath of the Wild 2. I'd like to see Breath of the Wild 2 as a first half game, maybe like July, like a month after.
I definitely
E3
want that to happen.
time.
I'm not sure I agree, but I'll let you finish your point. Sorry.
This is just what I'd like to see.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then them announcing a Zelda-themed Switch for the anniversary with gold Joy-Cons. And then the holiday game that I'd like to see, because I think if they're going to release one title that's going to be a huge KO punch to next-gen consoles for next holiday, what's the Mario Kart team been working on? Mario Kart 9 would be massive. I'd love to see Mario Kart as the November huge Switch release. I think that would be really cool. Not sure that that's going to happen. That's just what I'd like to see.
I mean, I'll just say, like, I don't think it's crazy, because if you look at the development cycles for these teams, that sort of lines up. So, you could be right. I'm sorry I sort of cut you off earlier.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah.
But I just wanted to say that I personally am no longer thinking Breath of the Wild 2 is a first half of 2021 game. It still could be. Like, it honestly could be. I just don't think it will be, mainly because I'm of the frame of mind that there will be other Zelda stuff coming out throughout this year. I think a Skyward Sword HD is potentially around the corner. I think that they're going to have some sort of anniversary announcements, and one of them will include either a Skyward Sword HD or some sort of Zelda collection. And I feel like a Zelda collection and HD remaster, if it's going to come out in the same year as a big new Zelda game, it should come out beforehand. So I think Skyward Sword HD could come out in the first half of 2021, and then you save the big holiday game, Zelda, for a little bit later. But I mean, it could maybe be a summer thing, right? Like, maybe we get Breath of the Wild 2 in the summer.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping for. But yeah, like you said, like it's very, very like that Breath of the Wild 2 is a holiday game. I mean, it's one of the biggest things that Nintendo has,
Yeah, for sure. That it's for sure possible. But I mean, what do you guys think of that idea, though, that maybe there could be some sort of massive January event?
I think it's not that crazy. I don't think we'll get everything announced that you said, but I definitely think there will be something in January, some sort of news event, whether that be a direct or direct mini, or even just some trailers on YouTube. We're gonna get some sort of news for new games and things in January. It's also very possible we get a Pokemon Direct in either January or February.
I think we're getting one in February for Pokemon.
Yeah,
it could happen sooner, though. You're right, Brandon. It may happen in January, but the point is, so January or February, there's probably going to be a Pokemon Direct or some sort of Pokemon showcase.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get some big news pretty quickly into the new year. I mean, I think they need to. It would be concerning if we go into March and we still haven't had any sort of larger media announcement.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you the truth. I think they can get away with going all the way until like April. That may sound crazy, but
we do have games. I think probably March
thing.
Is the latest. I think they should, because we have games.
Yeah, there is.
March.
Yeah, we do. It's just like I just know people are going to be like getting so antsy and like, what's going on?
I mean, the thing is, though, like, as right as you are about that and as painful as it's going to be, Nintendo got away with it.
Nintendo just lets us say the pain sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess the other thing, though, is that if we find ourselves in a situation where Nintendo doesn't make any major announcements all the way until April, then I'm going to be very concerned. Just because I'm not saying that 2021 won't be better than 2020. I think it's probably still will be better in terms of games that the core Nintendo fan base likes. Probably not in terms of sales if they don't announce them. If they're in a situation where they don't make any major announcements by April, then that's not going to be great for sales, I think.
They don't have, unless they have some sort of other Animal Crossing miracle that can save them.
To be clear, I'm not saying that their sales won't be strong in 2021. I'm just saying that if we're in a situation where Nintendo is not in a position to make major announcements until April, to me that says that there's no way they'll be able to compete with a huge sales year like this year. Because this year it was sort of like almost like a lightning in a bottle situation where the pandemic kind of helped them, right? So unless they have like a huge banger year next year with a slew of huge games and revisions, there's no way they're going to be able to compete in terms of hardware and software sales like they performed in this year.
Yeah. I think there's also we haven't really talked about this, but I think there's potential for them to do some really interesting things next year with their online service. I mean, we haven't had a Nintendo Online Classics launch since the Super Nintendo Classic on their online service.
There were some rumors for Game Boy Classic around the corner, right?
Yeah. And I think it would be really cool if they threw in... I feel like it would make sense for them to throw in Game Boy, and I think that should include, obviously, Game Boy Color games.
I would hope so.
In there as well.
So. Yeah.
But then with the launch, or the hopeful launch of new hardware, maybe they're like, our classic line that you get with the $20 a year subscription is NES Classic, Super Nintendo Classic, and Game Boy/Game Boy Color Classics. But we're introducing a special virtual console for N64 and GameCube, maybe Wii titles.
All at
Something
once?
that they get. Well, not all at once necessarily, but I just don't see any way that Nintendo adds a free library of N64 or GameCube games on the Switch online service. Like, I feel like it makes more sense to do those games virtual console style and charge like $5 or $10 a game or whatever they charge.
To your point, if you look at 3D All-Stars, they created dedicated emulators for those games. I don't think you create dedicated emulators just for those games unless you have plans to do other games using those emulators.
Right.
Yeah. And those are N64, GameCube, and Wii games upscaled to HD, right? So I think you're onto something. I think there would probably be something going on with that. And I think if they were to have a new version of Virtual Console, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I think it would be fantastic for them, and
maybe what they could do is they could have like a discount system. Like maybe you don't gain like a free, like it's just like a Netflix style sort of library for all of those new GameCube or re-released enhanced GameCube and Wii games. But what they do is that if you have Nintendo Online, you get them at a discounted price. Yeah,
they could do stuff like that, almost like PlayStation Plus does with their they do the free 2 games every month, but they could just do your Nintendo subscription discount or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think Virtual Console makes a lot of sense for N64, GameCube, and Wii, especially with those emulators now, the Switch built to run those emulations. And then keep the classics with the classics, Super Nintendo, NES, and Game Boy.
Yeah, and I guess what also makes sense is that I feel like N64 and more importantly GameCube and Wii, like there needs to be actually a little bit of extra like development time put into there to make sure the controls work appropriately. So to charge individually for those games kind of makes more sense because those are going to be more costly to get running appropriately on the Switch.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which perhaps even strengthens the argument for some sort of big presentation in early 2021, where it's sort of like a revamp for the console, right? They have a new revision, maybe they have a major update to the operating system, they have major updates for Nintendo's online options, they have several updates on big Nintendo games, and that's like a huge thing they can do to really like sort of highlight a potentially really good year for 2021. And I'm not saying Nintendo needs it, but it'd be really great to get something like that after the year we just got, like this year we sort of had to have a lot of faith. It would be nice if Nintendo were to be like, hey guys, don't worry, this year is going to be good, and let us show you exactly why with actual content, trailers and such, instead of just living off of rumors and things throughout the entire year with nothing tangible and just hoping that maybe there is that Mario remastered compilation, maybe.
Right.
Yeah,
getting to the point where you don't announce things until like 2 weeks before they go on sale.
I think 2020 has been very interesting in terms of challenging people's belief and like cool things happening when it comes to rumors. But I'll just say, like, there was definitely points where people did not believe Pikmin 3 Deluxe was happening. People did not believe Paper Mario was happening. People did not believe 3D All-Stars was happening. People did not believe Nintendo would have a major game for November. all of those things, which I mean, I think Cameron, I wasn't, we didn't know each other before, but I feel like you probably also believe those things are likely happening right before they were announced.
Say it again. Sorry. Things?
Did you think that 3D All Stars and Pikmin 3 Deluxe and some sort of holiday game were gonna happen before Nintendo made those announcements, or did you give up on it?
No, I thought definitely the 3D All Stars I thought was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Pikmin, I wasn't sure. I hoped it would happen, but honestly, I'm like, I just really want a Pikmin 4 announcement.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the point I was just trying to make though is that like we thought like a lot of like Nintendo analysts or YouTubers, what have you, sort of still believe that we were still getting games, but definitely a lot of people were skeptical. I'd just love to have a year where we don't have to do that, where we could just like we know this year's gonna be good, like make those announcements. Like 2017 we knew was gonna be good because in January they just told us here's the stuff, get excited, like, and it was fine, so I would prefer that, but I'll say, at the same time, I'll also say that when we get those surprise announcements a month or two in advance, that's really cool as well. Which is why I think we could maybe not see anything until April, because we already know about games for February and March, So we'll see what happens. But I think because of the Zelda Anniversary Direct, or not the Direct, but because of Zelda's Anniversary and also because of Pokemon's Anniversary, we're going to get at least some Nintendo announcements before April. For sure.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Let's talk about Metroid. Because that was not at the Game Awards, right? So, there was a hope that maybe something Metroid would happen in the Game Awards. It didn't happen yet. Has not happened yet. Doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means it hasn't happened. They didn't show it off yet. But what was interesting is that, and Brandon, you and I talked about this last week. There was a Fortnite announcement, and it did not include Samus in Fortnite, but it did confirm the rumor for Master Chief in Fortnite. So now we're in a situation where Kratos from PlayStation, Sony, right? Kratos from God of War, Sony, who's pretty stingy about working with other companies, by the way, similar to Nintendo. Kratos is available on all platforms of Fortnite, including Nintendo and Xbox. And now Master Chief from Halo is now playable on all platforms of Fortnite, including Nintendo and PlayStation. Okay? So you can play as Master Chief and Kratos in Fortnite on your Nintendo Switch, is what I'm trying to say. So that puts Nintendo in an interesting position, because Sony and Microsoft are doing stuff with Fortnite, and they're letting their characters to be playable in your game, in your system, on your system. So it kind of begs the question: is Nintendo going to be the odd one out and just be like, nope, we're not doing anything, or is something coming?
Yeah, I mean, Samus would be the perfect character to do that kind of thing with Fortnite.
Yeah.
It's I feel like it makes a lot of sense. I don't see why Nintendo want to be left out of that kind of thing,
Yeah.
The game's already on Switch. They could even throw some stuff on that little Fortnite shop, Nintendo exclusive stuff during that event.
Maybe.
That people would just eat up.
But Brandon, I want to ask you, because I asked you last week. I asked you, hey, if Master Chief happens, I believe you said something along the lines of you would be leaning towards Samus coming to Fortnite.
Yes, that is what I said, and I stand by that. I'm leaning towards the possibility, because I don't think my whole thing is, I feel like if any of the three were to say no, it would have been Sony, not Nintendo.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Sony is the one that's not been wanting to work together, whereas Nintendo's been working with all kinds of companies. For example, they've been working really closely with Microsoft. And I feel like they're the one that's been working with more partners than anybody else. So it would be strange for them not to be totally down for this. Though it is kind of odd that they're the last one to do it, whereas Sony was the first, which is really crazy to me. But they're also on good terms with Epic Games, especially with all the work they did helping get Unreal Engine 4 working on the Switch. That was a big thing because a lot of the third-party games on Switch use Unreal Engine 4. So there was a ton of work done there, which I'm sure they collaborated with them. And they're the same, company, sort of. So there's a lot more history with them working together than there is Sony in general. So it's interesting.
It's funny because a generation ago said no way, like Nintendo wouldn't put a character in Fortnite, but they've changed so much with the Switch where they're doing all sorts of crossovers, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, Hyrule Warriors and Hyrule Calamity we've gotten, and Starfleet in the Battle for Atlas game from Ubisoft. They're really doing some awesome partnerships, working together with Microsoft to get Microsoft characters in Smash. It makes a lot of sense. I'd actually be surprised if we never got a Nintendo character in Fortnite.
Yeah, I want to address some things in the chat. I want to see what you guys think here. So, first, see, Rob Obscuro is saying Fortnite don't do exclusives and never have. That is not true. There have been exclusives. For example, I play a lot on PlayStation. There's an exclusive skin for that you can't get on other platforms. It's a PlayStation exclusive
I think there
skin.
was an exclusive for the Switch too.
Yeah, I think that's not true. There are Fortnite exclusives. I'm not saying that it's for like the really big exciting stuff, but there are Fortnite exclusives. That is definitely a thing. But I'm also curious about this because I don't remember hearing that at all. And maybe I missed it, but iSonic added me and said they said at the Game Awards that this was the last Fortnite crossover announcement at the end. Brandon, you watched that with me. I don't remember them saying that.
I highly doubt that Master Chief is the last crossover. Well,
technically, it was Walking Dead. Showed Walking Dead, right?
Oh yeah. The Walking Dead.
Maybe they meant for the night. I don't think they said
maybe for the night. Yeah,
at the end.
There's no way that's gonna be the last one they ever do.
No.
That's ridiculous.
Cameron, you saw that trailer too, right? The Master Chief announcement?
Yep.
Do you remember them saying anything along the lines of it being the last crossover? I missed that. If you guys have a website or a link or something, I'm glad to check it out. If that's true, then we got to take that in consideration. But I'm of the frame of mind that's not the case.
Yeah, I don't recall that. I could have just missed it in the moment, but not that I recall.
Yeah. I don't think that's the case. But if you have something, I'll gladly look at that and we'll see if it's true or not. Yeah, as Squint Tripods bring up in the chat, this season goes all the way to March. It's all about bringing all the hunters from different realities. There's no way they're stopping there. Yeah, so I think there's definitely more crossovers to come. We shall see what's next. And that's the thing. Like, maybe.
Yeah. So
go on.
Real quick. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. I just looked up. Master Chief isn't the last. The Walking Dead comes out after him. The Daryl and.
But they made those announcements together.
Oh, together. Okay. The last announcement. Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything for that.
Yeah. So I'm not sure that that's true, but we shall see. But anyway, I think that it would be weird if Nintendo doesn't do something. It doesn't have to be Samus, though, right? It could be something else. But I feel like Samus makes sense, given that she is a bounty hunter. Yeah. Maybe they do Captain Falcon, because he's also a bounty hunter.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Just Falcon punching and Falcon kicking across the arena.
Yeah, I just feel like Samus makes sense, because, we know Prime 4 is in the works, and there's a speculation that both the 2D Metroid and Prime Trilogy have also been in development. So, and considering that the 35th anniversary is coming up, it feels like it would make sense to market Samus,
Yeah, I think Samus is the biggest character from Nintendo that actually makes sense, that actually wields a gun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Mario or Link. You could never see him just
Not to
coming
mention,
out with an
like,
AK.
while Samus is definitely not as big as Mario or Link, Samus, I think, has that potential with at least Prime 4 in the works, right? At least to be kind of, for a moment, pretty big. And then if you look at what Sony and Microsoft provided, Kratos and Master Chief, if Nintendo just gives Captain Falcon, you know, I just think like the waves that Captain Falcon would send as opposed to Samus would be a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that either franchise is really big right now, but at least Samus is kind of like something that creates trends. Like
Metroid
Samus was trending on Twitter last week. Right.
Even though the games themselves haven't really been doing much lately, the name itself is still widely renowned. If you mention it, I mean, any sort of Metroid announcement gets a ton of hype around it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, we'll see. I would love to see Captain Falcon because he would just be funny, especially if they give him like a Falcon Punch, like sort of like dancing animation or something. That'd be funny. But you know, I just think it would be weird if Nintendo doesn't do something. I have a hard time believing they're gonna do that right about now. But you know, I just want to ask both of you guys specifically about the Metroid thing before we move on here. Since Metroid, like, what are your thoughts on Metroid not showing up? Like, did you ever think that was super likely? Are you surprised? Do you think it suggests that Metroid is far off? Do you think it doesn't really have any significance? What do you guys think?
I never really expected it to happen. The whole Samus getting announced, specifically during the Game Awards and Metroid, I never thought was going to happen. So I wasn't surprised. I don't think it really means anything. I still think we'll get something Metroid next year. So, isn't next year Metroid's 35th anniversary too?
Yes, in August.
So yeah, 100% we're getting something next year.
In August. Yeah.
Real quick, here's my worry. We've got so many anniversaries. I'm wondering which franchise is going to get like the lesser, because you know they're not going to go all out for all of them. I'm curious who's going to get the lesser.
Well, there are other anniversaries that happen all the time, right? We just got Fire Emblem's 30th anniversary like a few weeks ago, so you know, it's a little different. Like some franchises get other different kinds of anniversaries depending on the situation.
The cool thing about this year, though, is a lot of the games that have anniversaries haven't had a game come out recently, so they're not like Fire Emblem had just gotten Fire Emblem 3 Houses. So it's not like they were going to have another mainline entry come out. But the big games like Metroid hasn't had anything for a while. Zelda, we know Breath of the Wild is like right about to come out, the sequel. And then Pokemon, well, they got all those rumors all the time.
Pokemon always celebrates their anniversary. They always celebrate it. So
we know there'll be something for Pokemon.
Yeah. And the thing about Zelda is that we literally saw a whole bunch of trademarks for a number of Zelda pieces of merchandise not too long ago. We saw the same thing for Mario a year beforehand. What happened for Mario? We got a huge Mario 35th anniversary event. Something similar seems to be happening with Zelda. For Metroid, though, if there is going to be an odd one out, Metroid is the one that would be the odd one out. Absolutely. Because it's a much smaller franchise. It's a dormant franchise. But I don't think it's going to be nothing, though. I think they are going to acknowledge it, and there's going to be at least one Metroid announcement next year. And I think it makes sense for several reasons.
It's just high time for one to be announced anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But also Metroid Prime 4 is in development, and it's one of Nintendo's biggest games they are working on. There's going to be a lot of marketing behind Metroid Prime 4. Why? Not because I want it to happen, but because there's a lot of money going into this, so they need to make sure it succeeds. So there's going to be a lot of marketing behind that, and that includes other announcements leading up into that, right? They're going to take advantage of the anniversary, I think, because that's a prime time during the social media age to get some discussions going on, get some talk going on. If you release Prime Trilogy during that time, it makes sense. That's not a big new game. That's a remaster, hopefully, of 3 old games that supposedly has been on the shelf for quite a while already. So you get that out there. That gets people to that allows people to play Metroid, learn about Metroid Prime, especially during the 35th anniversary time, talk more about it, and that you know, acquaints a lot more fans with the series. That way, when Prime 4 does come out, hopefully in 2022, that can sort of, you know, facilitate better sales. So I think it's logical to celebrate it. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be like a Metroid 35th anniversary direct with Metroid shoes and a Metroid movie and 3 Metroid games and several things added to the each. That's not going to happen. But are they going to maybe like have a trailer announcement around that time potentially? And they say, oh, it's Metroid's 35th anniversary. You could play this game that's, you know, it's a remaster of this old Metroid game or something like that. That I see happening.
Yeah, I feel like the best way they could celebrate it without, you know, they don't have to do anything crazy. I think the best way they could celebrate finally give us our first real peek at Metroid Prime 4, as well as give us that sweet Trilogy HD collection on the Switch.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, that just releasing the Trilogy collection is enough of a win for Metroid fans and a great way for broadening that audience. All the people who own the Switch who've never played a Metroid game before. Give them the best trilogy for that series. Those games are phenomenal. They're such good games.
Yeah, so
I
just
do
get
think
them
the
out
trilogy specifically is a good way to celebrate the anniversary because it's a legacy game.
Yeah.
So, whereas like a new 2D Metroid wouldn't be as big of a celebration. It'd still be a cool new Metroid game. It's less specific to like the anniversary.
Yeah. That is the thing with that. You know, one thing to note though, because season 5 is going to be going on for a while for Fortnite, because it's meant to like sort of bring in different like hunters and stuff throughout this event. Even though like last week we got Kratos and this week, or you know, the week that just passed, we got Master Chief. That doesn't mean Samus has to happen the week right after. So this upcoming week, I'd love it if that were to be the case, right? But they don't necessarily follow patterns like that. But we have all of season 5 for a chance to maybe get that crossover, right? And the thing is, I'd argue it might even make more sense for it to happen a little bit later because January, right? Like that's maybe when we start seeing some actual Nintendo announcements. Maybe if there is like a direct in January, they announce a new Metroid game, and that's when like, hey, there's this new Metroid game coming out. Maybe you could like whet your appetite by playing as Samus in Fortnite. You know, like the timing of that Samus Fortnite announcement could be a little bit later, because we may have to wait a little bit later before we get a Metroid announcement.
I could totally see them doing some sort of early direct or partner showcase or whatever, or direct, and like doing like what you said, like showing the Fortnite trailer with Samus arriving and stuff. That trailer ends, it cuts to like space and it's all like ominous. The music, you're like, what's this? And it does either like a trilogy announcement or just following that. Like you think that's the end of the Metroid announcement, and then here's the trilogy coming to Switch.
It'd be so cool. A trilogy or 2D Metroid, one or the other.
Or 2D.
Yeah, one or the other would be really exciting. And Brandon, I mean, you already talked about it. Like trilogy makes the most sense to celebrate the anniversary. And especially like that legacy sort of thing. Like it makes perfect sense, which is why I expect it then. We shall see what happens, right? But you know, there you go. I'll say that for 3D All-Stars, I think a lot of us agreed that like it made sense for 3D All-Stars to come out in September for Mario's anniversary, and I believe that would be what happened until like literally the day before they announced it. Like I gave up because they waited like a week and a half or something before it actually was going to come out. They was really short announcement to release window for that one, but you know, I think Nintendo does like to do things like that, so we'll see what happens with that for sure. But is there anything else in terms of like, you know, what we got or didn't get at the Game Awards that you guys want to touch on before we wrap things up?
Does it have to be from Nintendo specifically?
No. Yes.
Really. I just wanted to say the my 2 biggest things that got announced, other than what we've already talked about.
Yeah.
So obviously we mentioned before, but Crimson Desert is my #1 most hyped game from the show, not just because it's stunning, not just the art itself, but the way everything works together, the flowing of the trees and the breeze, and the graph physics and the water rendering and everything. It's not like one thing that you can look at and like, yes, this is how the game looks bad, or like everything looks really good and really seamless and flows really well, and it feels really real because there's a lot of things. There's a lot of subtle little animations that you kind of expect in real life that a lot of games don't simulate or don't simulate well. That are really like the way wind blows through trees. A lot of times it's very static or baked in animation, whereas this game, there's constantly wind blowing and it's dynamic, and it's a lot like Ghost of Tsushima. If Ghost of Tsushima was made for next gen, I feel like that's how it would look, because it's the same sort of like the world feels alive. There's always constantly so much animation and movement and interaction. It's great. But my second favorite announcement would probably be the Among Us map, because I'm a really big fan of the Henry Stickmin games, which apparently a lot of people don't realize what those are, but they're like the most popular Flash game ever. I feel like if you were a teenager in like the mid-2000s and you didn't play Henry Stickmin, I don't know what rock you were living under, but it's just those kind of like Flash games everybody used to play on browsers and stuff. That was like the pinnacle of that. So for them to reference that in Among Us is super cool.
Yeah, for sure. Those were definitely interesting things even to me, and I'm not as much of a fan of that as you are. I was looking forward to the Among Us announcement for sure. That just getting a new map seems fun. I was disappointed that it wasn't like a shadow drop. I really felt like it should be a shadow drop, and then it wasn't.
That would have been. That's what I was expecting, to be honest.
But yeah, Crimson Desert did kind of blow my mind for sure. But my biggest things were seeing the Monster Hunter Rise trailer and Sephiroth, obviously. And I mean, we can only get so many announcements at the Game Awards. 2 things, okay. I to your point, Cameron, I was hoping for one more little thing. I always want Nintendo to like be the star of the show. They chose not to be the star of the show this time around, but they're not always the star of the show. I mean, the other thing is that maybe Nintendo didn't even want to be the star of the show this time around because they knew what was going to happen. Last of Us 2 dominated everything, right? It won every award. Meanwhile, Nintendo won Animal Crossing won Best Family Game. I think that's it. Like, I can't think of anything else.
That's the only award they won. Yeah.
I don't even think that's fair. But it's just the audience for the Game Awards. Like it's the game. That's one of my issues with the Game Awards. It's not so much that I think it's a bad show. I think it's gotten better, right? And there's a lot of cool stuff that they announced there, and it's fun to watch. Parts of it, the ads just drive me crazy, but it's also clear that the Game Awards has a certain level of bias. Like there's definitely whoever they have as the panel, they're weighted in a particular direction every year, and you can tell. So that's just kind of the thing. Like, for example, you look at like best sports games. The sports games that are nominated, half of them have like Metacritic scores of like 5. Like it's not great. And for another example, last year I think what was it, Death Stranding, that was nominated. I don't think that was the kind of game that should be nominated. At least in terms of like reception. Like, it was not received that well.
It wasn't received. It was very controversial.
It wasn't
It's something that you either loved it or you hated it.
Right. And
it was weird that got nominated, but that Fire Emblem 3 Houses didn't get a nom.
Right. Like,
and it was one of the highest rated games of its year.
Exactly. 3 Houses was greatly received, while Death Stranding was not. However, Death Stranding, you could argue, was more of a buzz on social media, right? And definitely there was a lot more attention, a lot more eyes on that game going into its release, which is that's what makes sense. I understand that, which is why they
very much an experience more than it is a game.
Yeah,
it's very special.
And I'm not trying to speak ill of the game. I'm simply saying that if we go by reception, the nominations weren't the top 5 games of the year. And that's really my issue with the Game Awards. It's not purely about how well games are received and how they are assessed in terms of quality, right? And I mean, I'm not saying they don't get the Game of the Year right. I think for a lot of people, for example, this year, do feel Last of Us 2 is Game of the Year. Not for me. But, for some people...
To be honest, I feel like most people who even like the game don't think it should have won Game of the Year.
I know there are some people...
At least from the people I know
that have played it, and
maybe they enjoyed it.
there are people who have said this is one of the best experiences I've ever had. To each their own. I just think that, I don't know. I mean, Last of Us 2 maybe did deserve it this year. You could argue a couple other things, but my point, it's not so much about the winner.
Basis, it definitely deserved it. It was by far one of the most
very impressive,
technically demanding games.
Very impressive. My point is not that Last of Us 2 didn't necessarily deserve to win. It's just that overall, if you look at all the nominations and all the awards, it's clear that it's not always specifically only about the quality of the game.
Yeah, it won way more awards than it deserved, though it did deserve some awards.
Yeah, I was telling Brandon before we went live that, you know, my favorite award at the Game Awards is the Player's Choice for Game of the Year, but I wish they actually did that for
Tsushima, right?
It was Ghost of Tsushima, but that's my favorite announcement every year is the Player's Choice, because that's the pick that matters the most, what the gamers love the most. And I wish they would do it for every category. I was telling Brandon, like, they don't even have to make announcements. They don't have to go, and the Player's Choice for best narrative is to, because I know they're on a limited time, but even if they just had a graphic on the screen while they're announcing, like they're announcing that whatever, the Last of Us 2 won for best game direction. In the corner it says Player's Choice for best game direction was yada yada.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I think they should add the graphics for each category, because we're allowed to vote for every category, but the only vote we ever see is the Game of the Year. I think they should represent the players for each one. And
supposedly that they do weigh in the Player's Choice for the awards, but it's only like a small ratio.
Right, it's a small percentage.
Yeah. Right. And I agree with you. Player's Choice, I think, is more valuable than perhaps the amount of attention they give to it. And I'll also say that Ghost of Tsushima, I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, but my roommate has, and I've like sat down for hours watching him play that game. I just haven't had the time. That is like on my list. That game is like right up my personal alley, and I imagine that if I were to play it, I might agree that would be maybe Game of the Year, because it looks really good. It's more for my taste, is what I'm saying. So I think what's important about that is it's like not. I'm not saying like Animal Crossing had to win, even though you could argue that maybe Animal Crossing should have won because it sold better than any other game at the show by a long shot. It was a big part of the conversation online. It was very much a buzz thing. Animal Crossing New Horizons became very mainstream, broke all sorts of sales records, and has a lot to do that has a lot to do with the pandemic situation, right? And I think for a lot of people, the game became very valuable because it gave them something to do while they were quarantined. And I would say that, it at least got nominated. Normally, Animal Crossing is not even the kind of game that gets nominated.
No. Right. Yeah, I mean, the nomination's the most important part of it. It's, recognizing that each of those games was, outstanding in some form.
Yeah.
But I'm honestly like, I wasn't really bothered with any of the picks. I didn't agree with all of them, but I feel like everything that was at least nominated, I feel like they each earned their place there. And my picks. Among Us
won a few awards.
Yeah,
they won every award they were nominated for.
Yeah, I'm glad that happened.
My two out of the games that were nominated for Game of the Year, my two were Ghost of Tsushima and Hades. Those were the two games that I enjoyed the most this year. I haven't played The Last of Us 2, and I haven't played Doom Eternal, so I can't speak for those. But I just what I've seen of them, I could tell, like, at least with The Last of Us, that game deals with like really intense and big character building and dramatic storytelling, and I know Doom is like really fast-paced, great first-person shooter action. So I know each game in the category is outstanding in at least one aspect. So
I think that's the only thing that actually kind of I was like, oh really? About the Game Awards is that Doom Eternal didn't win a single award.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
It got Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm just alluding to the fact that Horizon Zero Dawn is an amazing game, incredible. It is a technical showcase for the PlayStation, really
Very
high
good.
quality game, but it kind of got overshadowed by Breath of the Wild at the same time. And it was not like, it was an amazing game, but it wasn't really the best at anything. So even though it's a very high quality game that deserves to be considered one of the top games of 2017, at the Game Awards, it just was never really considered the best of any one category. Which, by the way, I kind of have a problem with some of the categories, because I feel like some of the categories are almost like the same thing. Like, best direction, best action adventure, game of the year. They're like all kind of the same thing. Especially because, like, you might argue, well, action adventure isn't necessarily game of the year. But here's the thing: if you look at every game, every year across the Game Awards that wins, it's always best. It's always the best adventure.
I will
game.
say, usually they pick different ones for those, at least. Like, not always, but sometimes they at least give different awards. So it's like one might win Game of the Year, and then like second place wins best action game or something.
Well, I just want to say that you're right, but like Last of Us 2 can be considered an action adventure game. God of War can be considered an action adventure game. Sekiro can be considered an action adventure game. Breath of the Wild 2 can be considered an action adventure game. All those won Game of the Year for their respective years.
Yeah, action adventure is definitely the most. It's like the most AAA. I feel like Game Awards just decides like what they define as the most AAA game, then they pick that. That's their winner.
That's I kind of agree with that. Although AAA, right? Like Super Smash Bros. Is huge. I think actually last year was weird because we sort of talked about it. Smash Bros. Sold more than the other games that were nominated, was reviewed more than the other games were nominated, was definitely more of a social media buzz than the other games were nominated, had more of an impact on culture than the other games that were nominated. So it was best in all those regards objectively, but it still did not win Game of the Year.
I think the Game Award focuses more, instead of games as fun and games as entertainment, they focus on games as an art form. So it's a lot more technical, story kind of based, rather than like game mechanics based.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also feel like if you really hold true to that logic, I feel like Ghost should have won more awards than it did.
No, I feel like. Go on, finish your point.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't know, the couple of the like one of the big categories that surprised me was that Ghost didn't win Best Game Direction. I personally thought that it was no question that Ghost would win that, just because the way that game handles exploration and how organic and how natural, and that photo mode that's unlike anything we've ever had in a game before, that's so customizable. Just like that game handles like that organic exploration, that freedom of go anywhere you want, anytime, in a way that I haven't felt since, I've said this in my video, since Breath of the Wild. Not nearly to Breath of the Wild caliber with like the freedom, but I don't know, that game was just so unique and felt so fresh, and the sword play, in my opinion, in a lot of ways was unmatched in that game. I was just surprised.
Right. A lot of those are like gameplay things, whereas the Game Awards is very focused on art form. Which one was the more technical game? By far, what Naughty Dog did with The Last of Us Part 2 is probably one of the best looking games, just period, especially for the platforms it's on. I'm sure if it gets like a next gen version, it could go even farther, but the game's animation work is some of the best in the business. Like Naughty Dog is one of the best technical developers that exists. They will push hardware to the limits, like beyond anything you've even seen on like high-end PCs. There's other ones, obviously. CD Projekt Red is a big one, but there's companies like Naughty Dog that just in just a pure like art form just exceeds so much above everybody else in a technical sense. Like they push their code far beyond what the PlayStation should be capable of handling. Like The Last of Us should never be able to run on the PlayStation. It looks way better than what that system is spec'd for. So I think that's kind of the Game Awards, which I don't think it's a wrong mindset to have about games. It's one that I also put a lot of stock into, but it's also like they completely ignore the gameplay side of everything. which is fine for that show if you accept that that's their mentality on gaming, is they're not looking at it for gameplay, they're looking at it as an art form.
Right.
Then you can kind of accept it. You might not agree with it, but that's just how it is.
Right, and that's like kind of the logic, like with Death Stranding getting a nomination,
Yeah.
where it's not really much of a game, as it is like an
It's
art piece.
experience. Yeah, an
Yeah.
art piece. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
I understand that. I mean, and that's why I'm not like totally bent out of shape. Like I knew The Last of Us 2 would win. Like that there's no surprise with that. It's what the Game Awards is. I'm there for the announcements, really.
Yeah.
It's fine. And like we said in the beginning of the discussion, I think the Game Awards has improved. I think they did a great job with the trailer announcements this year because it was mostly focused on gameplay, which I think is definitely a big thing. I would love it if they were to kind of come up with a better ratio for ads versus actual announcements. But I think that's kind of tough because I know that they need the money and that's why it's there. I just wish there was a better way to do it. Maybe there is. I'm not sure what they would do, so hard to say. But, you know, that's just kind of what it is. But I want to sort of get to the chat here. A few different things. Ronnie Fazio added me. What would your reaction be if Pirate Hunter Zoro from One Piece got into Fortnite? I would be hyped. I am a fairly large One Piece fan, and Zoro getting in there would be pretty darn cool and absolutely fitting.
Epic, so.
And the other interesting thing is that in this season of Fortnite, we've seen a couple animated or anime style characters, like cel shaded. So you can throw in a cel shaded Zoro. They would work really well, actually. And basically, you know, his pickaxe would just be like using 3 swords, and then you just do all the other Fortnite stuff. So I think that would be cool. And maybe even have like a straw hat like backpack or something. That'd be funny.
Hell yeah.
That would be cool. I actually just in the last year became a big One Piece fan.
Yeah.
I a few years ago tried to get into One Piece. I got like almost 300 episodes in. Like
Almost how many?
Almost 300.
Oh, so you're farther. You
300.
got farther than me. I'm on like 211, I think.
Okay. Well, you were pretty close.
Yeah.
There's a lot of One Piece
But I
episodes.
haven't
It's
been
tough to
watching in a
keep up
while. I got to that point and I was just like, it's so much.
with. The
It's
problem
at like
with
900 now, yeah.
the problem with
Yeah.
One Piece is that it's kind of like slow paced.
Yeah.
Like every episode, not that much happens, and they have like a
Yes.
that's
my biggest issue. Is it's not even to where I could just skip the filler episodes. It's like there's filler in the main episodes constantly. It's just so dragged out.
basically they just try to like make sure one manga chapter is like one episode. That way
Right.
they don't catch up to the anime. But in order to do that, they have to like find a way to like spread like I forget. I haven't read the manga, so I'm not sure. But like, let's just say like 15 pages of a manga for 22 minutes. It's tough. they do it. They have long intros, long outros, always recaps.
Yeah.
Yep.
And every moment, 1 second in One Piece is like 3 episodes. So
It's funny because every time I think like the like at the end of each story arc so far, every time I think the final with like the baddie of that arc, it's always actually ends up happening like 4 or 5 episodes later. Like I'm like, oh, stuff's going down. I'm like, oh wait, not that one. It's probably the next one. Stuff's going down. Oh, no, probably the next one.
Yeah, I
Funny
love
story.
Yeah.
I when I was watching it, when I got to like episode like 200 to 225, I told Andres, I was like, I think I'm getting close to the end of the main arc. I'm gonna stop after they find the One Piece and move on to the next story arc. And he's like, what do you mean? They still haven't found that. And I'm like, wait, you mean to tell me it's almost 1,000 episodes, or I think there already is 1,000, and they haven't found the One Piece?
No.
Like, I thought for sure, like by episode 300, they find it and they'd move on to some other arc, and that's how they got to 900 episodes. I didn't realize they just have not found the thing that they're looking for this entire time.
Not
the
to
whole point of the show.
Yeah, not to stay on One Piece for too long, given that this is a Nintendo podcast.
Right.
But One Piece has like self-contained story arcs. So like you can like each One Piece arc can kind of be like its own independent story. And there is usually some like overarching plot development for the main story in each arc, but it's like only a little bit. and like each arc is like kind of like its own story, which is it's interesting how they do that, and I don't mind that. I just like I think the world of One Piece is great, the story is great, and the action is great, the characters are great. It's just that it's so slow paced because they want to maintain pace with the manga. It's kind of hard to watch sometimes, which is why I just sort of take breaks for a few months, and I just sort of binge watch, every time I've sort of created enough space to just sort of watch it in a row.
I can't wait for the show to end in like 30 years and then them finally release the definitive cut with the shows, like each episode covers like several chapters, and it's only like 300 episodes and it covers everything. Oh god, it's gonna be glorious.
Yeah. Nick Forrest asked, is Cyberpunk like GTA? I haven't played Cyberpunk yet, but from what I've seen, it's like a fusion of Fallout, Grand Theft Auto with like futuristic cities.
It's like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, I've been playing. I'm about like maybe 4 hours into it now, and I get like the vibes I get is obviously Grand Theft Auto, any Bethesda game kind of mixed in there, and then obviously like Deus Ex a little bit because it is that cyberpunky, futuristic. You can go stealth. You get all the different guns and hacking abilities. So Deus Ex, Skyrim, or Fallout mixed with Grand Theft Auto for sure.
And those are all huge, amazing games, so that's why it's so hyped. Like, if you get the PC version, it's good, but I've heard that the PS4 and Xbox versions do not do so well.
Don't get it on anything unless you have a next-gen system or a PC that has at least, like, a 20 series card or higher.
It's interesting. Can people buy for PS4 and play it on their PS5, and does it run well?
That's what I'm doing right now. Yeah.
It's funny because they haven't actually made the next gen version, so it's just running backwards compatibility mode. But it looked like two completely separate games because the PS4 version just can't handle the code at all. So like things don't even load properly because it can't run it.
But on the PS5, even though it's not like an optimized version, it still runs.
It works, yeah.
It
looks like how the last gen version would look if the last gen version could actually
work.
anything.
Yeah. It looks good. It doesn't look as good as the PC version, but it looks good. It looks comparable to a lot of PlayStation 4 games, I'd say.
I think the problem with Cyberpunk, not to go on too much of a tangent, but the reason people are like, why doesn't it look at least as good as last gen games, is because the game logic itself to run and how dense the game world is just too much. Like, you think about other open world games, typically it's just like open areas where there's like skyscrapers and buildings and clusters, but typically it's just open. Whereas Cyberpunk is so much denser, like the cities,
it's really dense.
They have to render so much more at once that to actually render it on PlayStation 4 properly, they'd have to literally just de-render entire buildings at a time and load like one layer at a time of this multi-layered city.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it sucks because I feel like it's obvious why they wanted to launch on current, like I guess now the previous gen, because there's such a huge install base. But I feel like making this a PS4 and Xbox One game, it was probably a disservice to the game just because all the problems that you're hearing now about bugs and the graphical issues, 90% of that exists at its worst on those two platforms.
A lot of it comes from assets they made for that version that aren't even supposed to be. That's why they're bugs, because it's loading the like PS4, like when you're viewing some character model from like 300 feet away, model, but it's like right up close.
Yeah, they should have just made it a next gen game that came out early next year, and it probably would have had no issues and had lots of praise.
To make this Nintendo relevant,
yes,
with a potential higher powered, a more powerful version of the Switch coming out next year, I think the general idea behind that is that games on that version of Switch will just look and run better. with that in mind, like, you know, like another graphical sort of tier, like you have undocked mode and docked mode. This would be like Switch Pro Plus mode or whatever, or what have you. So you have 3 different tiers that developers have to develop for, as opposed to 2 now.
Because you'd need Pro undocked as well.
Sure.
Pro dock, Pro undocked.
You're right. So in 4 different versions, right? Do you think we'll have situations where you want developers are like, oh, okay, there's this version that exists, so we can market this version on the Switch and it'll look and run pretty good, but people who get it on the base Switch, it'll run like trash, kind of like how you have 100%. This Cyberpunk issue where, yeah, it is for PS4 and Xbox, you can get it on those systems, look how great this game runs on PC. Like, do you think we'll have that issue next year?
100%. And we had that with the 3DS as well, where games like Hyrule Warriors in 3DS ran like absolute garbage, whereas on the new 3DS it ran fine. I think we'll see the same thing where third-party companies are just like, I guess it still works on Nintendo Switch, sort of, but they really optimized it for the Plus.
Yeah, that's bad.
Whatever.
I remember with Pokemon Sun and Moon, if you did double battles, you would see tons and tons of slowdown, but on the new 3DS, it's like, oh yeah, this is fine.
I've always wondered about the potential for Nintendo to release some sort of an optimized dock that is less than upgrading, but you could only have an enhanced experience in docked play. I mean, they've done things like that before with, like, if you remember, there was the RAM expansion pack for the Nintendo 64. You could only play Majora's Mask and Donkey Kong 64 with that. The new 3DS, you could only play Xenoblade Chronicles on. So I mean, it wouldn't be anything new for Nintendo to kind of like be like, okay, well, you have to have this to play. I don't know that Nintendo would do in a dock that lends extra power to the Switch, but I feel like it's a nice option. You know, there might be a lot of casual players who don't want to drop $300 or $350 on a new Switch. You could maybe get $100 dock that enhances.
Right. So I'll say that there is a lot of speculation that there will be, because the rumor, it's not even rumor, there's a data mine that suggests that there are 2 more Switch revisions coming. Okay? It's not just a rumor, it's a literal data mine. There's information, like hard information, that suggests that there are 2 other Switch revisions in the works. Doesn't mean they'll come out, doesn't mean there won't be more than that. It just means that there's something in the code for the Switch operating system that suggests that there's other Switch profiles that they've been working on or considering. Let's say that it comes to fruition. We get a Switch Pro. It's just basically a more powerful Switch, has 4K upscaling, it's a 1080p screen in handheld mode, it runs better, it's great. But to your point, like, there's this need to maybe have a more high quality optimized version for people who don't want to upgrade and just buy a whole new Switch. Well, there's been speculation, maybe they'll have like a Switch Home. Same way you have like a Switch Lite where you can't like dock it anymore. Maybe they just get rid of the mobile version and you just have like a home Switch. I personally wouldn't want to see that, but you know, if it's just another option for some people, then for sure, go for it.
I'm thinking about...
Let me just finish my point real quick, and then I'll let you...
Okay.
So, like, maybe they could do that, right? And this Switch Home would be kind of just as powerful as a new Pro Switch, but it's just only for TV, so it'd actually be cheaper than the Switch Pro. But my thinking, which would be kind of neat to see, is maybe they have like the Switch box, but what it is, it's just basically like an improved dock, and it's kind of like plugging in cartridges into an N64 or Super Nintendo, and you just take your Switch Lite or Switch, they finally give the Switch Lite the ability to dock, and you just dock it in this box that actually gives you the higher powered version of the visuals that you get with the Switch Pro.
My problem with them making a console-only Switch is for a Switch, not like an actual next-gen system, is I don't see the point. I understand that it's cheaper to make a console that's more powerful than it is to make a Switch handheld that's more powerful. But the thing is, when you look at upgrading power to a system, say, for example, like a Switch Pro, what are the actual benefits you're going to get from the new hardware? You're going to get resolution, you're going to get frame rate, you might get things like better draw distance, but you're not going to get anything past the assets that already exist in the files of the Switch version. So the lower resolution textures, that's what you're going to get. the lower resolution assets, that's what you're going to get. You're not going to get anything beyond the information that's in the code for the Switch version that's out right now. So to have a PC or a home console, and because the point of that would be to make it more powerful, cheaper. The problem is the amount that you could actually increase the fidelity over what exists is not in that line with the ratio of the amount of power that you would be increasing there. So there'd be a lot of wasted potential there unless you actually went in and patched in new assets for each and every single game. So it would make much more sense for them to just release a more powerful actual Switch that does the same thing, is just more powerful enough to increase those resolutions and frame rates, because you're not going to get those assets unless the developers make new assets or put the better assets in the game. So it's a lot more work. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
I see a couple questions in the chat, so I just want to sort of clarify on my idea. Just an idea is that instead of a Switch Home, they release a Switch, like a Switch dock, but it's like a box, like it's an actual box instead of like, a little cradle. And it's a box, right? But what you do is that it's almost like in the shape of like an N64 or Super Nintendo, where on the top and the middle, instead of putting in a cartridge I used to do on those older systems, you just put the Switch in there. Like it has like a dock space. It's just not a cradle anymore. It's a little box.
It makes me think of like the way you're describing it makes me what was it, like the Sega Masters system where it had like that like station with the Sega Genesis on it, and then the Sega CD. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that thing was a monster. You just put like 5 parts together.
I do know.
Yeah.
About that, yeah.
But I'm just saying it would just be a box. It would be a dock, just a different shape of a dock, and it would have more innards in there to power it up. Like it's basically what you just said, like an optimized dock or like a 4K dock or something. Just for those people who don't want to pay the full amount of money to upgrade to a new Switch, but want something so they can still get the improved visuals.
The thing that makes the most sense for that is definitely DLSS. If this thing did not have DLSS, NVIDIA, that's like your main thing, because the reason DLSS was even invented was to handle the significant cost of ray tracing.
For those who don't know what DLSS is, it's basically like this new sort of feature for some like chips that you can take a game and layman terms.
Do you want me to explain it?
I'll explain it poorly and then you explain it better. Basically, it's a way to upscale visuals without using as much power. So you could take a game that's like at 480p, 540p and make it look like it's 1080p without using the same amount of actual power it would take to make the game run at 1080p.
Yes. And the way it does that is through AI upscaling. DLSS stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling. So essentially what that means is there's a deep learning AI that looks at games and how they're rendered, and specifically the game you want. And it looks at it in 16K. So you guys have heard 4K. This is 16K. Knows exactly everything about what the game is supposed to look like, what the developer designed the game to look like. It knows exactly what it should be. And so when it sees 1080p, it goes, okay, I know what information is missing from this 1080p picture that is in this 16K image that I've been studying this whole time. So I can put in that information without having to actually render it because I know how it's supposed to look. So essentially what that happens is you run a game at 1080p, you upscale to 4K, it looks better than 4K and runs as if you ran it at 1080p. And it's not exactly like that, so there is some cost to it. So it's like as if you ran the game at like, say, 1184p, for example, instead of 1080p. It's a little bit more expensive than if you ran the game at a native 1080p. But compared to what it is on native 4K, it's way, way cheaper.
So basically, it's an easy, cheap way for a underpowered system to have improved visuals.
It's not even for underpowered systems. Even
it can work.
Like if you have a 3090 and you don't use DLSS, you're insane. It looks better than native resolution and runs better. There's literally no reason to not use it. So that's why I'm saying, like, if it's not in another Nintendo system, I'm gonna be baffled because it's literally saving you performance and looking better at the same time. There's no downside to this.
It would be baffling, especially considering Nintendo's relationship with Nvidia and the success of the Switch, and like this partnership is like Nvidia has benefited so much from they both have benefited from each other.
You would think that they would get early access to some of their new technologies.
Yeah. But like,
I think the reason they don't get early access is because it's expensive as hell. But
I think people in chat, like, you can check it out. Nvidia's put out like a few different trailers, like showing what it looks like, and it's cool to see like that difference in detail. You know, so some of the demos they show off subtle, but like even subtle difference with like texture and lighting is quite noticeable. You know.
Yeah.
And when you're getting like 85% in performance increases for a game that actually looks better now, it's like, why would you not turn that on? Why would you not want to use this feature?
So, you know, that's something that may be in the cards next year for a Switch revision potentially. So that could be really exciting, you know. It's cool because the Switch is a handheld system. So because of that, because it's a mobile device with mobile technology, it's harder to get powerful innards in there for a cheap price. But with technology like this, you can get more bang for your buck.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, not to go off on a complete tech tangent, I just get really excited. The Switch uses a very old manufacturing process that takes a lot more power to do the same job as the newer processes. So the newer process, especially the newest one, is so advanced and so much more efficient that it can run it can get the same performance with 2 to 3 times less power and heat generated. So that for a mobile chip is insane because you have a ton of cooling on a PC. It's a large tower. You have water cooling. You have huge fans. Whereas on a mobile chipset, that saving that bit of heat can just increase the power that much. You can literally get 2 to 3 times the power out of this new architecture just from upgrading the architecture. Not even adding more cores and more tech. They're literally using the same amount of stuff, but with the new architecture, getting 2 to 3 times performance increase. So a Switch, that's what excites me so much, is because the Switch hasn't even reached close to its potential. There's so much more that if they released the Switch today, the tech would be so much ahead of what the Switch is now. It would be insane. It'd be like a next-gen Switch, essentially.
Yeah. There's a couple of questions in the chat. Erica Popowich, the big question: will Nintendo ever do another traditional console? I don't think that there will ever be a traditional console for the Nintendo that will be like their main thing. But the idea of a like home console only device that's like just part of the Switch family, maybe. Like, I can Switch Lite is a thing where it's mobile only. You have the base Switch, then you have the high-end like deluxe Switch. Maybe they also have like a home console only Switch. It's cheaper than the deluxe Switch, but it gives similar visuals. You just don't have the handheld feature. Like, I think that's an option. So it would be a dedicated home
I think they don't want too many different types of Switches out there, so I don't think they'll do that. But it's an option.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the only way I see Nintendo ever doing a traditional home console again, where it's just like a cheaper option that runs the same level of like fidelity as the best Switch out there, or whatever it is in the future for Nintendo.
I'd like to address a comment in the chat real quick from Birdman, who says, the Tegra X1 Plus uses DLSS and the NVIDIA Shield. It's possible for a Switch Pro to use DLSS 2.0. That's not true. I don't know why you think the Switch or the NVIDIA Shield TV uses DLSS. It doesn't. It doesn't have the tech to do that. DLSS is not a software thing. It actually has specific tech that has to be included for it to work at all. And the Shield does not have that unless there's a Shield that just came out that I haven't heard about. But I don't think there is. That's not possible. Just wanted to point that out.
So it requires new hardware.
Take that and run. Yeah, it has to have those specific AI, what they call tensor cores, to work.
But the point
If
is
it
that
doesn't
if
have
it's
that, it won't work.
if it's
That's why
new
AMD doesn't
hardware,
have it.
if it's new hardware, theoretically they could put that new hardware in a Switch Pro.
Yes,
Yeah.
they could.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see, right? Next year is upon us. We are pretty darn close. And I think like 50 minutes ago I said we would wrap things up. This was the wrap-up hour. Yeah.
The wrap-up hour.
I just want to add real quick,
Yeah.
like it's so funny we have like all these like ideas around Switch Pro, but you know I'll say it a million times that Nintendo loves to throw curveballs. This is the company that announced that they were coming out with a cardboard mech suit,
Yeah.
cardboard VR,
Yeah.
and they did a model of the 3DS with no 3D. So I mean, who knows what direction they can go with a Switch Pro or Switch XL. I remember the Furukawa said in an interview, I think it was near the beginning of this year, that Nintendo is continuously, like, they're still looking for new ways to shock and surprise their fan base with hardware.
Right.
So I feel like it's hard for me to wrap my head around Nintendo ditching the hybrid thing.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
with that being said, I fully expect them to still surprise us in different ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I
Okay,
personally have an
okay.
idea. All right, Brian, you go first.
I have an
Mine-
idea, and I'm really excited for it. And
I
it's
hope it's
based
not my
off
idea.
of it's based off of previous patents. I don't know if it's your idea or not, but it's based
It's
off
not.
of previous patents, and it's based off of the PlayStation 5 controller. I would love it if the next gen or a next gen version of the Switch controller came out, and it had not only the newer version of, I'm using air quotes here, which you can't see, HD Rumble that's in the PS5 that's more accurate and feels better,
Right.
but also if it had the triggers that the PS5 has that actually are resistive,
Yeah.
and this is where the patent comes in. Nintendo had a patent for joysticks that did pretty much the same thing. Joysticks that would be resistant to your control.
So
So
4K
kind of like
Rumble,
how
4K Rumble,
yeah.
resistant,
I like that name,
adaptive
4K Rumble.
resistant triggers,
Triggers.
It doesn't make any
analog
sense, but it
triggers,
works.
and sticks
Yes.
with whatever
Dynamic sticks.
Resistant sticks, yes.
dynamic.
This would be
Dynamic
amazing. Give me all of the controller gimmick things that you. I mean, you can switch them off even on PlayStation 5 and on Switch,
Yeah.
so it's not like they're gimmicks.
You know, what'd be
'Cause they
another
don't
thing I
actually-
would like
they
to
just
see.
feel cool.
You know, what'd be another thing I would like to see, and this
It's like
might-
when you buy a racing wheel and you get adaptive resistance.
This
for
thing would
racing wheel.
probably make the controller really expensive and probably be really hard to make, but I don't think it's impossible. A system that can also give you hot and cold feelings. The way I would imagine it would work is like it's like you have parts
Yeah.
that can just heat up with a battery or something in certain parts, right? But in order to get the cold feeling, you have it blow out air, like so the controller would have like certain holes where you put your hands on. So that way, it's like, oh, you're in the cold. Oh, it's gonna start pushing air on you, if, like, or there's like wind or something. Or if like you're in a volcano, oh man, it's heating up. Like,
There's flash floods. It just spraying you in the face. I
it'd be
love
neat.
it.
It would be neat.
They had a patent. Well, this was quite a while ago during. I think like the end of the Wii U days, and I had never heard of this technology. They use it now in newer smartphones, but that technology with the glass that's bendable and foldy. You know what I'm talking about? They have those
Yeah.
flip phones now that are just like
Yeah.
just one screen, and
Yeah.
the screen bends.
Like-
But there were Nintendo patents for that a while ago, before I even knew phone companies were going to be using that same
Nintendo
tech.
probably thought about that for the DS. Yeah.
I think that would be something really cool for a future iteration of hardware to, you know, expand like screen size, or, you know, a portable like docking type switch that when you're playing in portable mode, you can just flip the screen open and you've got like a larger screen with maybe more touchable. I don't know, but I could see a lot of cool ideas with that kind of tech.
It's not impossible. It would just be like, I guess the weird thing is just like,
It's weird. Yeah.
I have to imagine what would be the form factor of it. Like, there's different ways to go about doing that. Like, do you just fold it like sideways, right? And then you fold it out so it's widescreen, or or is it more like, you know, like hard to say. But
Yeah, it's hard to
it's
say.
maybe
but
an
it's
option in the
interesting
future
tech.
someday, right?
Yeah.
For sure. That would be one way to make it smaller too. Like, imagine if Switch is more like a phone. Now the thing is, it needs buttons, And I cannot.
They could
no.
still put Joy-Con rails like at like where the joint would be, where it folds. You know, at like that middle point, there could be rails where you could slide it. I have no idea. Only Nintendo knows how to make these wacky
it's not
creations.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not impossible for sure. By the way, my idea wasn't a real idea. I was just gonna be like, oh, the Nintendo tricycle. It's a tricycle that you play, but you can dock your Switch into it.
Oh, I wanted to bring up another.
I think I heard about that one. That rumor.
The tricycle.
I'm just completely not paying attention to the weirdness that's going on right now. But Birdman came back and said the NVIDIA Show TV Pro has DLSS. So I'm like, okay, maybe I haven't heard of this. So I looked it up. And it does have AI upscaling from NVIDIA, but I can't see what type. And it's not for games. It's only for movies, which DLSS wasn't built for. It's built for games. So I don't think it's actually using DLSS. I think it's using some sort of other NVIDIA upscaler or a different version of DLSS that's not for gaming. Either way, it's not actually the same. It's not used for games, but it does have AI upscaling to upscale movies to 4K.
Okay.
But it's not the same thing from what I understand.
Interesting.
And it's not for games.
Interesting. Huh. I would like to see like old movies like upscaled to 4K, like Lord of the Rings, for example. Although I think there might be 4K versions of that anyway. But that's
yeah.
There's one more chat here, and I think we'll probably call it. I think Nintendo needs to do a dedicated portable and home console that play the same games. You get the watered down experience on the portable and the best experience on the home. So you have the Switch Lite. Now you want like a Switch Home. Yeah, I mean we sort of touched on it already. I think the best thing to do is have a more powerful mobile version, right? It's maybe more expensive, but you know it's a more powerful version of that. And if you want to have, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. If you want to have like a, okay, I thought my cat was up to no good, but if you want to have another version where it's just a Switch Home only, maybe that. I just feel like it would be weird for Nintendo to release like a super powerful home console only kind of Switch or Nintendo system, because it's not that I don't think it would be cool. It's not that I wouldn't want it. It's just that I think it wouldn't really sell that much. Like I think most people are like, oh, but I would rather have something that's both. Like that's the best thing. Like one of the reasons the Switch sells so well is because it's both. The home console only Switch will only cater to a small market, and to go ahead and invest additional R&D to make it like the most powerful version, the best version, where developers have to develop the best looking version that won't even sell that much. That's a little weird to me. That's the issue. Like, why even bother with developing for this more powerful version that's not even going to sell that well? So that's why I think, if anything, we would get a Switch Home, but it would just be as powerful as a Switch Pro.
Yeah. The other interesting thing is that's kind of, I get what they're saying. That's kind of already what we have too. When you think about like, we have the Switch in portable mode is, you know, you're looking at games in 720p. Docked, you're looking at games in 1080p. It's kind of like we already have that.
Right, like the Switch Lite,
in a sense.
The Switch Lite is as powerful as a normal Switch, basically, in portable mode. At least it runs games basically the same in portable mode.
The way it's clocked, it's literally the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we kind of already have that to a degree.
Yeah. Eric Popovich, with these brilliant ideas, do you think Nintendo would make enthusiast virtual version consoles? Oh, enthusiast version, like special.
That's so not a Nintendo thing to do. I mean, I don't know. I said that twice. The Plus version of the console would already be this type of higher. What's the word they used?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
The word they just...
In the comment?
Yeah.
The enthusiast version.
That's the word, yes. This Plus type console would already be an enthusiast console because it's a console above the typical starting price, but it's not enthusiast in the way that say like an RTX 3090 is an enthusiast card, where it's so much more expensive for not that much better games.
I mean, the thing is, Nintendo usually doesn't sell things that are really, really expensive. They've never really tried to do that. But, you know, we'll see what happens next year. Lots of possibilities. I'm sure next week we'll be talking about Sephiroth and Smash Bros. And how he plays and what Mii costumes come in. And who knows what else is in store. But that's pretty much it for now. We've hit the 3-hour mark again. Try not to do that, but we did it. Because there's just so much to talk about. But that's all for now, everyone. Make sure to check out Cameron's channel, Gamebird Classic. It is linked in the description below. Brandon's channel, WhataboutNintendo. What? I can't even say your name anymore, Brandon. What About Nintendo is also linked in the description below. You guys have any closing thoughts?
Brandon, you want to go first?
No.
Oh, those are some great. That was a great closer.
Yeah,
no,
I'm so good at this guy. It's professional.
Just thank you guys so much for having me on again. It's always a blast being on here talking about Nintendo with you guys. And I am excited for next. My closing thoughts is I am excited for 2021 because I really believe that it's going to be a special year, not just for Zelda, but for the Switch overall. And I'm really interested to see what Nintendo has.
Yeah, for sure. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think 2021 will be a great year for gaming in general. You got the Switch, I think, is definitely going to bounce back, and Nintendo's going to have a much better year than this year. But then you got the 2 next-gen consoles and, of course, PC stuff. So next year's going to be a really big year for gaming in general. So,
yeah, especially with the Nintendo Tricycle coming out. So
yeah,
it's going to be great. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Cool.